Hey guys, welcome and good evening to another space with me. My name is Kalu Aja. I'm going to be your host for the next 3 hours maximum. We're of course in this space. We're talking the economy, personal finance, and money. Anything that talks about money, you get it here every week. But we make it personal to you. We take the big topics, we make it relevant to your wallet. That's our goal here. This week we have a very geeky subject, something that we talk about all the time, but perhaps we don't have a real understanding of that subject. We want to tackle this week. It's about the IMF. You might say the IMF, the World Bank, and what's going on in Africa. Since I've grown up, I knew what was happening. Right, I always hear IMF loan. I always hear SAP. And I always wonder what the IMF was. What did it do? Why was it so hated in Africa? Why is it so powerful? Why are all the problems in Africa all to do with the IMF? So I did my research a long time ago. But the Kenyan situation has brought this thing back to the forefront of what we're talking about. If this is what's happening in Kenya, if you're following, essentially, Kenya has passed a budget with what they call the 2024 Finance Bill. Now, that Finance Act also included a lot of provisions that have to increase revenues. We're going to take their taxes up, and we're going to reform even how the power supply is going to be priced in Kenya. That's the summary of the finance bill. Taxes would go up. Why is Kenya increasing taxes? Well, because Kenya has gotten a loan from the IMF. And then, of course, you saw the issues happening in Kenya, the riots, the protests, even the killings, sadly. And it does draw us back to this issue of the IMF once more again. Nigeria had a very huge riot over SAP, the Structural Adjustment Program. Back then, I didn't understand what it was all about. But we had a huge riot. Some people said that was why the capital was moved to Abuja really quickly at that time. It was that encompassing. We had the SAP. So let's just talk this week about IMF, SAP, and see if really IMF is getting a bad rap, or if really IMF is a problem. That's what I want to talk about. So if you allow me, let me take about 5 to 10 minutes to just lay out the framework of what the IMF and all that is. Well, in 1944, right, just as the Second World War was wrapping up, really getting to its conclusion, the world met in New Hampshire, America. And they sort of tried to find out what had caused the war. What had caused the war in the world. And what they did find out was that Germany, after the First World War, the economy had crashed. German economy had crashed. And then based on that, the German economists, the German guys that the government, simply printed a lot of money. They printed trillions and trillions of Deutschmarks. If you look at those pictures you see of inflation, mega inflation. It's from Germany. The Germans taking barrels of Deutschmark to buy the loaf of bread. It came from there. It was that printing, that hyperinflation, that collapse of the economy that led ultimately to a guy called Hitler saying that he would solve the problem and getting elected. So you can see why monetary policy now became a national security issue. But when the economy fails, you then allow, should we say, populists to come to power, who can then start a global war and kill millions, which is what happened in Germany. So based on this, they then said, listen, we have to have a framework. We have to have a framework going forward in Africa that would essentially say that we are going to control how money is going to be created, and we are going to control maybe what we call exchange rates, and we're going to ensure that one country does not become so economically, should we say, in chaos that it then leads to the creation of another quote-unquote madman, right? That's what they did. So the IMF and the World Bank were created in what we call the Bretton Woods. That's the name of the place, right? So we call them the Bretton Woods institution. The IMF itself is quote-unquote like a finance company. So if you look at your country like a company, if your company gets revenues, it spends. If your company has no revenues, let's say it's expecting cash from its consumer and they haven't paid, it can go to the bank to borrow money and say, hey, give me a till my customers pay. That's fine. But what if your company cannot get any loan from any bank? So your company can't get a loan from any bank. Nobody will lend to your company. What will happen? Well, your staff will get angry. They might burn the company. They might get angry, beat you up, cause public nuisance. So the IMF is like that institution that steps in and lends money to your company because your company has no money. Remember, no bank will lend you money, so the IMF will come in, lend the country, not the company, the country money now, as a stopgap, so the country can reorganize itself and then move forward. The World Bank is more or less like a development institution. It's not a bank per se, but they do the building roads, building schools, giving you longer term loans for those development activities. That's what the World Bank does. But the IMF is the financer. So what they did when IMF was formed, just about less than 50 members, their focus was only on exchange rates. So essentially the whole world had to link, when I mean the whole world, I mean the West of course, had to link their currencies to the US dollar. Then the US dollar was then linked to gold. So essentially you couldn't have a hyperinflationary period in say Germany or Italy, because the Germans and the Italians, their currency was linked to the dollar, and the dollar was linked to gold. So you couldn't print any lira, you couldn't print any marks anymore, because you have to export to end gold before you can print new Deutschmarks or liras or whatever it was. That's the structure the world had from 45 all the way to about the 70s. If you follow this closely, you will understand the US now has a huge advantage here, because the US is the one creating and printing dollars. Everybody is linking their currency to the dollar, but the dollar is being linked to gold. There is not enough gold to link to dollar. So essentially the US can print what it wants if it wants to finance its deficit by simply decoupling the dollar from gold, which is what Nixon did. So Nixon took the gold from the dollar, he decoupled it. So now your US dollar, if you have a dollar in the 1960s, look at it, it'll tell you can take this dollar to the Federal Reserve and get gold. It's right there on the dollar bill. But going forward, it's removed. What you see on the dollar is called the full fate of the US government. So when you hold the dollar, you are holding a piece of paper. It's a promise, an IOU. It's no longer gold, just an IOU. So let's move forward to what that means to us now. Now the world is no longer linked to gold and exchange, which means the IMF no longer has a role. Right? So what did they do? They first of all said, if you're an African country, when I mean African, I mean just all countries, right? To get a long-term development loan from the World Bank, you've got to be a member of the IMF. So if Nigeria wants to get a loan to build schools in Abia, and Nigeria doesn't need a loan, we still have to join the IMF to get that loan from the World Bank. That's number one. And then number two, IMF transited away from just exchange rate monitoring to what we call surveillance and giving loans. So the IMF goes to the world and says, listen, we're going to start to surveil and record your economies every year, every quarter. So IMF is like a credit bureau. They would come to your country and say, hey, how are your exports, how are your imports, how are your spending, what's your inflation? They calculate everything and then they put out a report out there. Every year they do it. So even if you don't want an IMF loan, you want to ensure that the report that the IMF has produced for you is good, because it's based on that IMF report that banks will lend you money. That's the whole idea. So even if you don't want an IMF loan, you have to have, at least you will still be surveilled. So you want to make sure that your economy is good. Why do you want to make sure the economy is good? Because you still have to borrow. It doesn't have to be IMF. You go to Chase Manhattan to borrow money. You would look at your IMF report and see how good is this country. And of course, if the country has a bad report, they increase the interest rate. If the country has a good report, they reduce your interest rate. That's the general framework of how the IMF, the World Bank, and the banks are now tied into this borrowing. Which means if you're a Kenya and you want to borrow, and you have already borrowed from the Eurobonds, you've already borrowed from Eurobonds, which means you're like that company that can no longer get loans from the commercial market. So Kenya can no longer, we're talking about maybe a year or 2 years ago, not now, could no longer get loans because it had already borrowed from the Eurobonds market. Just like Nigeria, we've already borrowed, we've maximized, and the export earnings from Kenya are not rising. But the costs in Kenya, the cost of salaries, the cost of running the government are rising. No one will lend you money without the IMF saying so. So what does the IMF say? Well, we're going to do policy support on you, and we will give you an IMF loan. This is where it gets interesting, guys. Now follow closely. When the IMF gives you a loan, they give you what is called a conditionality. Conditionality, that means that you will take that loan based on conditions that you must then implement in your local economy. Those conditions are the same as you guys would know. It would be remove subsidies, it would be cut down the size of government, focus on net exports. If you notice, those conditions are designed to create revenues, local revenues in the economy to repay the IMF. So whether it's Nigeria, whether it's Thailand, whether it's Kenya, all the conditionalities have one thing in goal: create revenues. Well, how do you create revenues? By making the economy efficient. Guys, you are in trouble. Then you go to the IMF. It's not the IMF that puts you in trouble. Kenya was in trouble. That's why they went to the IMF. It's not the other way around. Because no bank will lend you money in dollars until they see that report. You have to go to the IMF for that short-term loan, get the conditionalities and implement them. When the foreigners see you implementing, then they give you a loan. It's exactly what happened in Kenya. They had about $2.3 billion loan from the IMF, right? And when Ruto went to Washington, and he then signed that he was going to, or signal was going to implement this new finance act, what happened? They released nearly $1 billion to him. So Kenya has already collected the money up front. They have to then go back and pass this conditionalities. I think the funny thing, when Ruto was campaigning, the IMF negotiations were going on, and they knew that most of the things they were saying during their campaigns would not work because they were already signing an IMF loan that says you are going to increase taxes. But they signed knowing that down the line they have to increase taxes, and they tried to increase taxes and people pushed back on them. That's why they're so insistent, because if they don't get this IMF financing, they can't go anywhere else. Literally, the Eurobond that Kenya issued, they issued a new Eurobond. They used the new Eurobond issue to pay off the maturing Eurobond issue in June. So not only have they borrowed, they've taken the money in advance and paid off the existing loan. They now have a new Eurobond issue. And this new Eurobond issue is a signal, because the IMF has said Kenya is going to pass the conditionalities which are in that Finance Act. These are so connected. Conditionalities, Finance Act, IMF, you get your loan. That's the connection. And that's why you then see people right now implement the IMF. I don't think so. You are in trouble, then you go to the IMF. IMF did not cause Kenya's politicians to pay themselves and become the highest paid politicians on planet Earth. Per GDP per capita, Kenyans are the highest paid. They beat Nigeria to that record. So that's the framework. Same thing with Nigeria. If you come to Nigeria, the exact same thing. Nigeria doesn't have an IMF loan per se, but IMF has something called a policy support instrument, PSI. What a PSI is you can say, I don't want to borrow from the IMF, but I want to operate my economy under the guidelines of what the IMF considers as being quote-unquote good, right? So if you do a PSI, you pretend as if you want to borrow, and then run your economy as if you are that efficient. I put it this way, that store that wants to borrow from the bank will tell the store, you must no longer issue cash. You must make sure you do your audits every quarter. You make sure you must hire an accountant. Now, the company can say, I'm not going to borrow money, but all what the bank told me, I will implement it because they are good for my economy. So Nigeria will say, we're going to remove subsidies. Why? So there's more money to pay back IMF loans. Nigeria will say, we're going to increase taxes. Why? So there's no more money to pay back loans. All those functionalities are designed by the IMF to extract the revenues from the local economy, so that when you pay back the IMF, you signal that you back international loans. That's the whole idea. That's why you see in Nigeria, there's no IMF loan, but because the PSI, we are increasing VAT, we are removing subsidies on fuel, we are floating Naira. All these things are all quote unquote IMF conditionalities. We don't have to borrow, but you've got to create the economy in such a way that you then get those ratings from Moody's, from S&P. So the question really boils down to this: is Africa giving the IMF a bad rap? Africans get into trouble, then they have to go to the IMF. It's not the other way around. So, Kalu, last question: has the IMF had any success stories in the world? Because you are saying it's not IMF's fault, it's the Africans' fault. Yes. Look at Asia, look at Thailand, Malaysia, when they had the currency crisis. Remember the IMF, like I said, was a currency exchange rate institution. Look at what they did in those countries. Thailand, Malaysia, when they had the Asian currency crisis, that their currency was losing money because money was leaving. The IMF also came in and stabilized, and they moved on, right? Those countries are doing better now because the economies, the structure of those countries the infrastructure is already set. So IMF was able to revert to what they were really set up to do, which is exchange rates. If you come to a country like Nigeria and you want to do an IMF policy to increase fuel subsidies, to reduce subsidies, increase VAT, the pass-through effect is very, very limited because just outside Lagos, there are no roads. So you say, remove the subsidy on PMS. The PMS subsidy removal is supposed to generate more revenue to the government to pay back a loan. But once the government gets the revenue, it has to go immediately and pay 25,000 to poor people. Because the economy is too ancient, too inefficient to absorb those first world economies. That's what's going on. The guy that wrote the economics textbook did not believe a country that exports crude oil will not have power supply. So when they write those theories, they don't think about that a country like Nigeria, that is the world's largest economy in Africa, which is just last year, largest economy in Africa, will operate an economy without rail lines. There are no rail lines going to Nigeria east to west, none. The ones that go from north to south are all narrow gauge. Only Lagos to Ibadan is standard gauge. This is a country that has been the largest exporter of crude oil from 1970 to date. Has no rail line going west to east, has no standard rail line going north to south, has no power supply 24/7. No one writing economics textbooks in 1947 assumed this was possible. They knew Italy and Germany were bombed after the Second World War, but now Italy and Germany have power supply. But they did not believe that a country would survive for 30 years with no power supply. Lebanon fought the civil war. They have power supply. So, this is guys. So let me stop talking. Lots of guys want to speak. I know lots of DMs are here already. So let me get Dollar. How you doing? First speaker. Should go for it. What's the take? I know I already have tons of DM already. Kalu, just to be clear, explain to me, does Nigeria have an IMF loan or not? That's a good question. No. From the records I am seeing, Nigeria has no existing IMF loan per se. What the IMF did was that when we had the COVID crisis, IMF gave a support facility to literally all most of the developing countries across the world. It's not a normal IMF loan per se. It was this COVID support that they gave, and of course, Nigeria was a part of it. And I think the last report I saw from the Debt Union Office, Nigeria is paying back that principal that we took from that loan from the IMF. So we don't have the loan per se, it's just that support facility. The last loan we had, I believe, was the year 2000. That was the last loan that Nigeria got from the IMF. We did the SAP. Which is the Structured Adjustment Program, but we didn't take the IMF loan. So what Bangida did was he ran the economy. He not just with austerity. He did what IMF would have asked him to do without taking the IMF loan per se. Africa, what's up, man? Africa, what's your take?
Hi, Carl. Thanks for can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, so go for it.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on most of the points that I was really going to bring on, and just kind of maybe start answering answering the question, I think the IMF itself doesn't really hurt Africa.
Sure.
In Africa, when you have these economic troubles, that's when you go to the IMF. And you don't need to look too far. I think the largest recipient for IMF loans is India at the moment. And the outstanding loans have been trending down for India the last 2-3 years or so. And Africa is these IMF, the critique I would say is that the IMF have a one-size-fits-all with their policy, which doesn't really work when you look at economics. Most of those economic structures they require, as you put, they work in principle, but they don't dig into the nuances of the economy, especially in Africa, and the policy. And when it comes to corruption, just implementing those policies themselves, it's not uniform like in Europe and West Europe. But they don't seem to have that for, maybe they do, but they don't. Their enforcement doesn't go all the way when it comes to implementing policy. They have these requirements. How those policies are implemented, they don't intervene. And you can have, like you said, Kenya, where the principle has high taxes, slightly high taxes, certain areas to make sure they can pay back the loans. It works. But when you look at the situation on the ground, it's not something that can be done immediately.
Yeah, and
so
no, please continue. Go ahead.
That would be my critique where it comes to at least the policy-wise, they have this one-size-fits-all, and it doesn't work. They have evidence it doesn't work. They don't pay money when it comes to implementing those policies. I understand in principle those things work, but you have to take into factor the different conditions and status of these countries that are taking these loans. And it's even more important because it's obvious they're having issues. So just waving a bunch of metrics that they should implement and assume everything's going to do well. They have the evidence that doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way.
Yeah. Go on, sorry.
No, really, I totally agree with you, but that the nuance is lost when they get to Africa, right? But if you look at it, let's take Kenya, for example. Ruto was campaigning. At the same time, they were negotiating an IMF loan. And in that loan, they had told them already, this is what we want you guys to do. Number one, you have to implement this new tax policy, which is increase taxes. Number two, you have to scrap subsidies, including fuel subsidies. Number three, you have to do Kenya Power. Kenya Power has to be profitable. So what we're doing in Nigeria, they have to make it like, what's it called? Band A, all that kind of stuff, make it more cost-related tariffs, right? But Ruto in the campaigning was telling Kenyans, I'm going to give you free phone, I'm going to give you free broadband, all that kind of nonsense. But he knew that he was going to sign this loan from the IMF. And based on his commitment to sign, the IMF gave him $976 million. He got $976 million, that he was going to sign. And IMF went to town and said, yes, we've reviewed Kenya's policy, and yes, they're going to pass the 2024. So which means the finance act was already up. They saw the act already. That's why they passed. So now Kenyans are all in arms, and they should be, because what's happening in Kenya, the Kenyan youths are saying, listen, you're not cutting your costs, you are increasing our taxes. They have a valid argument. But the politicians now and the people would still come back and blame the IMF for what Ruto and numerous guys in Africa do. Once it's a problem, look at SAP, Africa, look at SAP. Every Nigerian knows SAP. They'll tell you IMF, neoliberal policies, the same wording over and over. World Bank policies, it also have Nigeria and Africa. But it's the Nigerians, the Kenyans that are taking these loans, have run the economy to the ground that they can't people borrow. Remember, IMF will not lend to you. It was the last lender of resource.
No, I agree. I'm not taking responsibility from politicians. Most of them are, especially if you look at Nigeria, it's very clear. Most of our issues primarily come from both corruption and incompetence of our politicians. All I could just tell you based on macro factors that naturally occur, but just on the few places I would say our politicians are actually primarily responsible for our current situation. So I'm not taking any responsibility on their part.
Sri Lanka. It's Sri Lanka, it's Somalia, it's where else? Which other country has gone bankrupt?
There you go.
Yeah.
You know, Sudan. You know where? You know exactly where I'm going. The alternative, if people want to believe that IMF is far worse, I think that is where, you know, at various times we might have questions that things get worse, really. Clearly they have. So it's something that it's not, I don't think reason they have pointed the finger at the Arabs and say, oh, our current situation for them would be better. That's definitely not the case.
I mean, the IMF is not the one buying private jets and yachts.
Sorry, I can't catch it.
I mean, the IMF isn't buying private jets. IMF has told Nigeria, you know, liberalize, you know, get more efficient. But it's Nigeria that are buying private jets and yachts and SUVs. We are the ones doing it. And we are the ones taking up. Because remember, IMF is an exchange. That's how it was started. Exchange monitoring. So when your balance of trade starts to get negative, they step in because you're doing a bad job. So thanks, Africa. So I'm sure want to hear more from us. John Speaker, John, is that megawatts or NW?
It's John's Malawi.
Malawi, how you doing, sir? Where are you calling from?
I'm in South Africa, but I'm from Malawi.
Malawi, excellent. Go for it, sir. Go to the floor.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak. And we, as Africans, we must speak the truth of these foreign loans and IMF so-called. I don't know what it is, but IMF doesn't mean good for us. My question is, why people, because Africa, we have everything, and property, Nigeria on its own is a center for oil, gas, and everything else. We've got people like Dangote. Why don't we formulate our own monetary system that is working for us Africans instead of relying on foreign loans?
I think it's a fantastic question. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I remember the speech of Samora Machel, the former president of Mozambique, what he said. He said, in order for someone to understand the capacity and the objective of the enemy, you must have a clear concept or ideology of how to deal with the enemy. We must have a proper strategy on how to deal and solve the African problems. I'm always saying that why don't we have our own industrial revolution bank that will be able to facilitate all these economic channels? Because IMF has been there for how many years? I don't know, for ages. But which countries are doing well with IMF? If I may ask a question.
I don't think there's any African nation that has had a good experience with IMF, which is why there's a perception that IMF comes with trouble. But the point is that trouble comes and IMF comes. They're like Christina Amanpour. When you have trouble, she comes. But she doesn't create a problem. And if you look at Africa, 3 countries are not borrowing from the IMF. 3 countries. Number 1, Libya. Libya, we know why Libya is not borrowing. They've got oil money, but they are not borrowing from the IMF. Number 2, Eritrea. That's like North Korea. They're not doing anything with anybody. That's number 2. Then number 3, you've got Botswana. And Botswana hasn't brought it. They've run their economy. They export diamonds. And they've run a very, very good economy. So again...
Can I give an example of Botswana?
Go for it.
Because I'm on the southern region side.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, what these private countries, what they're doing, they're taking money to put in IMF for the countries to borrow. What nonsense is that?
This is the thing that I tried to explain at the very top, right? So Botswana is going to run its economy as if it was borrowing, but it doesn't borrow. It does it that way to have a good credit rating. They're not borrowing. So they will basically say, hey, we're going to do our budget, we're going to be transparent, we're going to be efficient. These are the things that IMF is asking for. But they don't borrow. They haven't borrowed. They're a resource-rich country. They have invested that resource perfectly back into the economy. Zero corruption, great rule of law. Their politics is sound, and they educate their people. You can't say the same for many countries that have resource-rich and haven't done the same. That's the thing. IMF is going to Botswana to give them money. But they come to Zambia. You said from Zambia, so you're from Malawi. Malawi, your president came, good guy. He dropped inflation in his first year. Now they've gone back to the IMF to borrow. That's Malawi. And you know, the first time he came on, the loan that the IMF gave him, or the loan he got, was very, very onerous. The same thing is going to happen in Malawi. This new guidance are going to give you guys in Malawi is going to be the same thing. Increase taxes, remove subsidies, because the IMF wants their money back. They are not a development bank. IMF is a bank, also a finance company. World Bank will give you 10-year loans. So it's the same question we're asking. You say, why don't we have African bank? We do have one, African Development Bank, but guess who the shareholders are? The West. Maybe Africa can look at China, maybe as the alternative to the IMF, which would then give you development loans without these stringent conditionalities. Perhaps. Because if you don't have wealth,
Where I'm sitting right now and where I'm standing right now is that Africa is like a beautiful girl, a beautiful woman. Everyone will want to date. We must forget on relying on foreign forces. We must try to build ourselves, to depend and rely on our own. This mentality and this ideology of saying, let's rely on Russia, let's shift our what do you call it, our alliance to China. This is the one that is affecting us. China doesn't mean good also for us. I mean, you can see the infrastructure that the Chinese are building in China, in Africa, compared to their countries in China. They're very different because they build the sub, not even the sub, I don't know, under. So we must have to build our own as Africans, communities. We must forget about relying on everything that is foreign forces.
Good speech, sir. I agree.
Must be on its own.
I agree. Good speech, but let me just tell you something, right? If China was not in Africa, I doubt we would have seen any standard transcontinental rail in Africa as we speak. And that's the irony of it. I agree with what you're saying. We should build our own, but without them, I don't know where Africa would have been today. I'm not marketing for China. I'm just saying that, what is wrong with, I'm agreeing with you, what's wrong with Africa? That it has to take China to come here. China was suffering famines in 1978, 1968. They had a famine. But now, they've taken over Africa. They are building railways, building roads. The African Union building was built free of charge by China. Okay? An Africa that has Nigeria and
interdict you. I just want to ask you something. Are you sure Chinese they built all those what you call African Union for free? It's good for free. It's our own very same own money that was taken from resources that are stealing from Africa. South Africa. I'll give you an example of South Africa. South Africa is exporting chrome, which is a raw chrome, to China, creating how many jobs? Millions and millions of jobs. Do you know what these guys are doing? They are buying PGMs, platinum group metals. They are buying it as chrome, but when it goes to China, they're separating into palladium and different types of minerals. So when we talk about doing things for free as Chinese, we are lying to ourselves. Because we Africans are the ones feeding China. We Africans are the ones feeding Russia. We Africans are the ones feeding America, USA, or UK. We must have our own ideology on how to run this continent without relying on foreign forces.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you commenting with us. Thank you so much. Let's get Mr. Haruna. Haruna, how you doing? Well, how is the farm? What's happening, sir?
Well, fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, sir.
Fine.
Yeah.
I'm trying our best to see what will happen, but the fight is going on. Fine. Thank God, alhamdulillah.
Excellent. We're talking IMF today, sir. What's your take?
You see, Kadu, a lot of us manufacture to Africa completely. IMF has been the bane of our own development in some countries like take Nigeria, for example. Before the introduction of SAP, look at all our industries. Look at Fiat that used to manufacture, to assemble tractors. Look at Sia, look at Volkswagen in Lagos. There were assembling trucks, tractors, and so on and so forth. And it turned into warehouses due to the structural adjustment programs. And they do this to African countries to make us perpetually poor and dependent on their own resources, on their own finished goods. They take the raw materials from Africa, they bring back the finished products to Africa. Why don't they set up the industries here to be using the raw materials that we have had an advantage? Look at what is happening in Niger. Look at, they have uranium, but they don't have a single power plant that can power 1 megawatts. But the whole of Europe is using 13% of Niger's uranium to power their energy, so on and so forth. How will you give somebody a loan, a package? Let's take for example, you give somebody $1 billion loan for a project. He spends $600 million for research studies, labs, and so on. 400 million goes back to the European nations. I've never seen them effectively have any economy come out of the woods. There's never, and there are thousands of studies on the implications of IMF contribution to Africa. A lot of studies have been carried out for such a long time on these things, and these studies are there for people to see.
The question they're going to ask you is this: when you say SAP, who brought SAP? It was not the IMF that brought SAP. Nigerians brought SAP because those industries. It's true, Hannah. It's true. The industries you are talking about, Steyr, and Anamco, they failed. Then IMF came.
It was a structural adjustment program. The federal government, it was a condition for federal government to prioritize on its investment in the industries.
That's the point I'm making, Hannah. That if you Google this, if you go back and people are listening, no, Hannah, that's not that. If you go back and look at the history, I've done the research. Look at the history. Babangida was implementing an austerity program, which meant that we were broke. Hence, we had to do austerity. But they then said, why just do austerity? Why don't you restructure the economy to take it from consumption? This thing, consumption to production, was from Babangida's time. So we said we're no longer going to import. That's there you are talking about. Would import CKD and couple in Abauchi and then use in Nigeria. They said no, let us do backward integration, let's do import substitution and make the local materials for steel in Bauchi itself and just bring a few imports and then use the steel in Nigeria. That was the whole idea. We were broke. We couldn't pay for imports.
Because now you don't have the steel industry to give you the steel that you use it for the machineries.
Yes, but we are
Ajakuta was producing reinforcing bars. Ajakuta was not producing flat sheets. So
yes.
Technically what they are telling us is just rubbish.
No, but Hannah, the point that I'm not making.
To get what we want is there. What is the difference?
But Hannah, this is the point I'm making. SAP was because Nigeria was broke. IMF did not give us SAP, then we became broke. That's the point I'm making, where the timeline has to be established. Once you get the timeline right, and this is factual, you can Google it. But Babangida was an austerity program because we could not pay for imports. Remember before, what was happening before Babangida? Essential commodities. I grew up lining up to buy sugar and milk in Nigeria. Essential commodities. We could not pay for imports. So SAP was to allow us to get loans. We didn't get the IMF loan, but was to structure the economy to allow Nigeria to access foreign capital. That's factual.
Who introduced SAP to us?
Nigeria.
Who advised us to start implementing SAP?
Nigeria.
No, who was it?
And what was the result? Did we take the loan? We didn't take the loan. Did we take the loan?
No, we should go for it.
Exactly.
We shouldn't go for it.
And we didn't take it.
But the military government overruled it because of the influence of the Brethren institution.
Oh, we didn't take the loan, sir.
We didn't take the
We didn't take the loan.
No, and you know, we didn't take the loan, but it's a precursor for the loan.
Okay.
It's a precursor. It is the timeline that they were set for us. Okay, you want to access this. These are the policies you need to put on ground. You need to do this. What's his name? This former minister of finance.
Kalu Idika
Kalu was saying these are the these are this. We were set up, we were advised to take some at the same time with Malaysia. But when the Malaysians look at the documents, they turn it down. They threw it to the dustbin. But when we took it out and sinker, what happened with our privatization? We were advised to privatize to divest from these industries so that we'll assess those. It's a Brentwood advice for us to stifle our economy. Because they said, who will advise you not to go on against your own industrialization?
But okay, Hannah, let's just say that's for that topic. So what did IMF tell Nigeria? He said number one, increase your tax revenues. Nigeria was not collecting quote unquote, and I'm being very flippant here, taxes. Because we are getting money from crude oil.
How can you collect taxes when you don't have the modalities of collecting the taxes?
So how can we run? How can we run the economy? No, but Hannah, how can
There's no economy that develops on taxation.
no, every economy develops on taxation. Every economy on earth develops on taxation.
This will to the logical conclusion.
Every Western nation taxes. Every Eastern nation taxes.
From the rich and giving the poor. But
No.
is not taking from the poor and giving the rich.
You can argue with the mechanics, but every nation taxes. Every nation taxes. The nations you want to be like Malaysia, every nation, and Nigeria was basically doing fuel was free. There was no taxation. The government agencies were employment bureaus. They were not working. So SAP said we will restructure, structural adjustment to take Nigeria from an importer to a local manufacturer. That was what SAP was. Consumption economy. When Nigeria was importing to consume, so we had no dollar. We could no longer pay for dollar. It's not as if IMF stopped the import. IMF said you cannot afford import. Hence, increase your tariffs to motivate the local people to manufacture. That's why you had Omoka High Tech. Omoka High Tech then came because SAP came and stopped the import of motor parts. Because you are not importing motor parts into Nigeria again, you now have people like Omoka High Tech making local cars today. And today you now have the Innocence and the North. Because that policy, the issue is not the SAP. The issue we did not do it properly. If we had done it properly, we would have had Innocent in 1970.
Between Innocent and Vaughan.
Innocent is local, Vaughan is German. So they have huge cost structures. Innocent does not have those cost structures that Vaughan has. Innocent is making steel, he's bending steel here. Vaughan is bringing CKD to Lagos to assemble. That's what was going on. So IMF says you can't afford import anymore. You have to do more local inputs. This is importing the steel.
What's the difference?
But the steel is not the whole car. You use somebody you see.
Now you set up a steel plant that will produce the car kit.
Who?
I
agree.
That you are telling me that they not to import.
But who killed Ajaokuta? Was it IMF? Who killed Ajaokuta? Was it IMF? No, we can't blame. Who killed Ajaokuta? It was us. But the West thing is Ajaokuta. I disagree. The Russians built Ajaokuta, not the West. The Russians built Ajaokuta. That gave the Russians a contract that was from the start of 419. Russians built Ajaokuta to use their billets. So Ajaokuta was making steel without the furnace.
No, you get it wrong. Ajaokuta was constructed with our own iron ore from Itakwe.
It's not true.
The Russians completed the rail.
How now? How now you're jumping the gun. So you know what I'm talking about? Why do we have Itakwe? Why do we have it? Why do we have Itakwe? Why do we have Itakwe? Why is there an Itakwe plant? Yeah, why do we have it? Why do we have it? It's not. It's why do we have it? Nyamko. Why do we have Nigerian iron ore mining? Why do we have it now? Because Nigerian iron ore. Go ahead.
Because we have the iron ore deposit in
No, sir. The question is, why do we have?
We have iron ore deposits.
No, our question I'm asking is that Ajaokuta cannot use Nigerian iron ore. We had to create Nigerian iron ore. Google it, sir.
It can. Because of the
That's not Okay, now, okay, I hear you.
No, the problem we have with Itakwe, now I'll tell you this. Itakwe iron ore is not a high grade.
There you go.
Testing was not supposed to be cited in
There you go.
It's supposed to be cited in Nasarawa.
There you go.
They have a very good iron ore. But because Mama Elime Kele then was the minister of mines, used his position to cite Ajaokuta in Ajaokuta and use Itakwe iron ore, which has to undergo a process of
There you go.
to upgrade it.
There you go. You answer the question. Sir, the Nigerian iron ore, the iron ore Nigeria has in Itakwe, in Kogi, cannot work with Ajaokuta. So Nigeria had to build a Nigerian iron ore mining company to beatrify the iron ore. That's why we built that rail line. No, Hannah, I don't
want to make money from the process. So instead of telling Ajaokuta that they have the iron ore directly, now they set up a Nigerian Iron Mining Corporation to be selling the raw materials to Ajaokuta as a company now. So the government earns both ways.
No, sir.
That is the concept.
So, sir.
I'm telling you, that is the concept.
Hannah, we got to move on. Hannah, we have to move on.
Do the finally stop the crude oil direct from the companies? No, they said they give our companies through a venture. There must be a vehicle to transport this thing to them so that you send to the refineries and then they know, okay, this thing is being calculated. Not that iron ore will just be there, then Ajaokuta will have control because it was set up as a company now. And Ajaokuta is an independent organization of the mining corporation. The mining corporation is supposed to take care of the iron ore, sell it to Ajaokuta. Ajaokuta will now blast it, produce the iron ores. Why we have billets is because our blast furnace was not in use. And even our blast furnace is completely in use. We're producing the billets. Then the billets will take them to the rolling stock to produce whatever we want. That is, it will go into phase 1, phase 2, where you have the phase 2 is supposed to be in flat sheet center. You must get the billets to turn it into whatever you want to turn it.
Okay, Hannah. People are listening, so let me try to, so people can Google this. Hold on. People are listening, so let us make sure I give the facts. When Ajaokuta, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on after this. Move on. When Nigeria was looking for someone to build a steel plant, we went to the West. The West said no. Russia agreed. Nigeria didn't have oil then. Russia agreed to give Nigeria a loan to build Ajaokuta. Nigeria gave it to Russia to build. Then Nigeria found oil. Because Nigeria found oil, we went back to the West. Sir, let me just finish. Sir, please let me just finish. Sir, please let me just finish. Who can Google it? It's Google. Who can Google this? Nigeria went back to the West to try to give the contact to the West to build Ajaokuta. The Russians came back to Nigeria and told Nigeria that the iron ore in Nigeria is capable of being used to make steel in Ajaokuta, that they have the technology to use the iron ore in Nigeria, because the problem that even the West told Nigeria was that the iron ore in Nigeria cannot make steel. The Russians came back and said, no, we have this technology that can make it. Based on that, Nigeria gave the contract to Ajaokuta. When the Russians got the contract to Ajaokuta, they decided to build it. They did not give Nigerians the plans. Later on, the Minister of Power, the one from Benue, the guy that's now dead, found out that this was a huge scam and it was too late. That's why once the Russians built Ajaokuta, Nigeria has built 5 new steel plants. None was given to the Russians. Even Ajaokuta, the engineering buildings were then given to the Italians. And the one that was going to build in Ajaokuta, they didn't give Russia any other contract in Ajaokuta. The Russians were importing billets into Ajaokuta to make steel. The iron ore in Nigeria needs to be fined to make steel. It cannot make steel. It's no policy. The one in Kaduna now, because technology has improved, the one in Kaduna now is using the same iron ore that the Russians gave us. The one in Kaduna now. But this is after 20, 30 years. Back then, it was not possible. Google what I've said, please. Hannah, let's move on. Well, let's move on. People Google this. No, Hannah, we have to move on, Hannah. We have to move on. We have to move on, Hannah. Hannah, let's move on. So, let me get, I appreciate, we have Nigeria session and we'll speak. Lucky, you've got the floor. Lucky Luciano. Sorry about the Jakarta. Lucky, please go ahead. Lucky going one, Lucky going twice. Edwin, Mr. Edwin Aka, please go ahead, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, Lucky, go ahead.
Okay.
Very, very well, sir. Where are you calling from?
From Kwara.
Oh, yeah, Lucky, go ahead.
Yes. So I just came up on a theory, not really a theory, but I think this is what's happening. We are in Nigeria about the time of I think we are being sabotaged in a way, generally by globalists. You know, say theory, but I find that what is happening in Nigeria now, the family income is targeted that has been planned, and you find out that the attacked the food basket of the nation, it attacked all the places that that food can come out. Nigeria now they have to pay.
Who is they? Who is they? Lucky, you dropped. I can't hear Lucky again. Can anybody hear Lucky? I can't hear Lucky again. Yeah, Mr. Edwin, can you hear Lucky?
I can't hear him anymore.
Mr. Edwin, please go ahead. Mr. Edwin, I think he dropped off. Sorry about that. And engineer, guys, if you want to speak, just speak around. We'll go at you guys to speak, please. Diplo Salt, I've got more yearless. Diplo Salt, you got the floor, please go ahead.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. Good evening to everyone in this space and everyone listening. Actually, we are about to divert the conversations.
I apologize. Yeah.
I like us to focus on this IMF issue.
Go for it.
Actually, just like I've said, I do not have the only issue I have with IMF because they are not forcing us like someone who always defend IMF always tell me on the timeline that they are supposed to take kilo. They are not forcing us to take kilo. The only issue I have with their conditions is that they never give conditions that will cover the excesses of the politicians. They only give conditions that will target the masses. That's my only problem with them.
Interesting.
So if their conditions were to help the politicians, stop paying yourself minimum wage, put yourself on minimum wage, stop buying less every 4 years, stop doing this, stop. Now you can say, okay, they are really trying to help us. But when every time they want to give them money, they know they are going to lose. Their conditions is to steal the masses, is to punish the masses, is to punish the common man. So I don't think people who have that idea that they are out to destroy Africa, I don't think they are wrong because it looks like it. So like there was someone saying that we had SAP, Strategic Program from IMF. I think SAP was around the early 90s.
What Nigeria
was exporting. We were exporting massively. So it's not about moving from consumption to production or from consumption to exporting in Nigeria. We are exporting massively before then. Before crude oil, we had cocoa. Southwest was developed majorly with cocoa oil. But you see, we have some set of leaders now that they are so lazy and they don't do anything. And that is where the fault is with us as people. We need to scrutinize these people who are voting into office.
Yeah, but look at the point. Look at the point. Look at the point. Southwest was exporting cocoa. That was the problem. So that once cocoa prices fell, the Southwest economy fell. Like as the every economy in Nigeria, then we didn't have the budget balance of payment crisis when we had no forex to pay for imports because by exporting raw materials. SAP was to say don't export cocoa, export cocoa powder, create local jobs with that cocoa locally, create jobs, create consumption locally, then export the finished goods. That was an adjustment program from being an export. Nigeria was exporting that was the whole idea of SAP.
Well, I think if you want to give someone a loan to do that kind of thing, the mandate should be on create factories, do this, do that. But as it looks now, it is like like I said, their policies and conditions are against the masses. Like I said, I don't talk about IMF because they are not forcing us to take their money. Their money is there, but they are not forcing us. We have leadership problem in Africa. Where some people know there is a free money somewhere that you can just go to. So then it's crude oil is to me like lazy money. There are countries that don't have crude oil and they are doing better. Crude oil is lazy money. First, what I will mention is just like 1,000 of things that we have in Nigeria. Even if it is export, let's even go back to that export. Export the cocoa, export the rubber, export palm oil. Why must it be only crude oil? They sit with the crude oil and then so out of the money, steal out of the oil, and we are going back to borrow money. No, African nations do not have any business borrowing money from anybody, either IMF or nothing. But we have leaders that are not in tune with the masses. So when they bring these policies like subsidy, during the election, when people were saying subsidy must go, I was just laughing that the ordinary masses that are trying for subsidy to go, they don't know what they are calling for. It's not normal. So I would rather a government sit tight to get more money instead of you sneaking your people. So when you are broke, and people keep saying we are broke. We are not broke. We are killing ourselves. We are looting ourselves. That's not brokenness. We are not broke. We are the ones doing it to ourselves.
I agree. I agree with when you say that. Why doesn't the IMF pass? Can you mute it? I agree when you say that why don't they ask the politicians not to pay themselves salaries? Good point that you've raised. I think that's a fantastic point that you've raised. Why didn't they tell Kenyan politicians they must stop paying themselves salary on your minimum wage? I think that's an excellent point. If you don't mind, let's leave it there. So let me get Edwin in, but I've taken that note of that comment. Yeah. Edwin, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I think, one of the biggest problems we have in Africa is that most of us have been living in the West. I live in Switzerland. And, if you have been to business school, most of the business school, they talk about policy, strategy, so on and so forth. Now, if Africa rise to become a competitor to the Europeans, mostly the Western world. And now, when I think about the problem we have regarding to IMF, I don't want to see from the Harvard Review point of view. I don't want to see from IIT point of view. I don't want to see from Oxford point of view. I don't want to see a problem from Karl Marx or those who wrote capitalist point of view. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because it has to hit us that somebody is printing pieces of paper. People are printing papers or creating us some digital numbers. And return for that, they are demanding trade or resources from us. They are demanding that we sell our product very cheap and pay off the pieces of paper they send us. So I'm not taking from the economical sense of it, I'm taking from the logical sense of it. The IMF get the pieces of paper, print them, or create us some digital money. In return, we are selling our resources very cheap and paying back for that pieces of paper.
That's the whole world, sir, right? That's what the whole world is.
The European governments, most of their economy is based, they can print as much paper as they want. The Europeans can print as much paper as they want. And they are enslaving us by getting our resources. So, from my point of view, what I'm trying to say, the best way would be, why don't they not give us paper? Why don't they give us machinery? Like you guys were talking about Ajokuta. A brand new military machine, multi-machine, is not less than $10 million to produce steel. And now our government have been in this argument that when we talk about, for example, gas and all this issue, we get it for free. We can even sell it for $1 and use it to produce cheap product and export. So I'll have to put it short. The only thing I'm trying to get us into thinking is that we have to think not tell us later about IMF. Let us think that somebody is printing a piece of paper and giving us, and we're selling cheap products. And using our own products, our own natural resources, and paying for that piece of paper. You know?
In the things right here, nobody has stopped us from doing what you're saying. No, Nigeria used to do barter trade under Buhari, the first Buhari military guy. Nobody has stopped us from saying take oil and gas, printing presses and tractors. Nobody has stopped us. Nobody. But
the question is, okay, why are we not doing, because with the Jonathan era, that's when this subsidy, this swap came into effect.
SAP or swap?
Swap, oil swap.
No, it was well before then. Well before then. Yeah, yeah, they're refining.
For me, that's the best policy. But now, for the fact that we are going to somebody sitting somewhere in New York or in London and then demanding pieces of paper or credit or some digital money, and we are giving them increasing tax on our people. No, because the kind of inflation those policies are bringing to the economy in Europe, if you rate inflation goes to even 1 digit, there's an issue. People go on the street and start to destroy government property. But for them, when they force us to implement those policies in Africa, they laugh at us because any price in Switzerland cannot go even 50 cents. People will riot on the streets. They will riot the government.
Yeah, but again, I'm just saying that again, you have to ask the question. Kenya just showed that you can't go to Kenya and increase tariffs. You know, they just showed that they won't take it. But Nigerians, in the last, let me be very, very fair, the last maybe 8 years, even prices have been going up. Tax, VAT. Everything has gone up in price. People are saying, let's pray. Let us do prayer. You know, so again, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm coming home to say nothing you are saying is illegal. No country has said, oh, you can't, if you give us oil, we'll give you machinery for your, no country has said that. So I'm agreeing with you and I'm asking, why haven't we done it? This is the point I'm making. So I come to agree with you, sir, and you want to say,
let me just, like you're saying, why haven't we done that? Let me give you an instance. Currently, me as a consulting friend of mine, we are running on some projects to build some industry in Nigeria. Do you know the biggest headache we have? The biggest headache we are having is the energy, and as well as the currency exchange, because you can't project, you can't plan, because they keep on, the exchange keep on bouncing up and down. The energy price is not stable, because if they're using gas now to run your industry, you need to calculate, you need to if you are debtors or investors, you need to come to terms with them. They give you 5 years moratorium on debt or equity. You have to do some calculation that will enable you to create jobs. And for that, you need cheap energy. But if the government keep on putting the price of energy we are getting for free in Nigeria, because it's free because we are not paying for it, the energy is free. As if the government can come to their senses and bring down the price of energy, let's remove the word subsidy. Let's, like other states have done now, if they can have stable energy, fixed price for some maybe 5 years, then you can plan your production. But you know, Nigeria is so complex, but the key to avoid this IMF loan is to let us have cheap energy. If we have cheap energy in Nigeria, we can get it going. But without cheap energy, we can be speaking grammar and then be praying.
So on that point, before I just move on to, so we have gas that we are flaring. So we have so much gas in Nigeria that we are burning it, we are wasting it. Yet we complain that we have expensive power. It's just the best, doctor. Doctor, thank you so much for the comment. Let me get Dr. Derry in here. Yeah. So doctor, if you're going to get Cyrus. Cyrus has been here for a while. Cyrus, how are you, sir?
Can you hear me?
Very well, I can hear you, sir.
Thank you very much. I love the conversation. I was on the listener session. I said, let me join and I was chipping one or two things. I think the big issue here when we talk about IMF is that we have to best understand that IMF is an international development bank, and they deal with credit facilities. And they're usually a last resort bank, compared to other banks, and so they don't, they come in when everything has policy based on certain conditions. So now it's not something that is imposed on you, something that is forced down your throat. You have to look at those conditions. And those conditions actually, tied with public finance. And I think that's one part that a lot of people are not talking about here because when we make certain statements or make certain presumptions, we always allude to the fact that there is a place to public finance in certain decisions. So if you are giving a concessionary loan, a low interest loan, you also have to look at the touchdown. What is the internal rating of this particular economy? What's the economic output of this particular economy? How soon can the economy recover or whatnot? But in Africa here, the problem with us, and a lot of people try to make it ideological, make it, a matter of, partisan or whatnot, is that we've not been able to manage public finance very well. Most of our revenues, in terms of government revenue, do not come, directly from the proceeds of trade, which is referred to as taxes, right? People with certain trade or economic activities and they pay a particular amount to the government. What many of our revenue comes from are usually raw material that is directly, coming through the actions of the government. So, for example, in Nigeria, we have crude oil, and the government sells crude oil. Right? In the US, it's not like that. People are involved in the value chain of the economic activity of the country or of the economic space. And then the next certain proceed and they give the government. So we've not been able to re-engineer our public finance such a way that it is geared towards productivity, geared towards trade, geared towards industrialization and whatnot. So we depend solely on many of these government-owned companies that are very, very inefficient, very, very inefficient. I remember when we took it. Something.
Yeah.
Let me just make this last point. I remember when we took it, he tried to privatize about, I think, 5 state-owned companies that have not been making profit for about 30 years. I think that got lost in the parliament. We argument back and forth and was saying it was going to privatize about 100 more. So you could see the problem in Africa now not being on the and it's not just a matter of opinion because remember, economy is about scarce resources at the end of the day. There's no much to go around, and if you do not have the right management of your economy, at the end of the day, you become susceptible to all of these things. And what IMF really forced many countries to do is to find a way to reduce public spending, public expenditure, and also increase revenue and promote growth, particularly privatization-led growth, to boost or support the economy. Because even if you want government to control almost every aspect of the economy, you have to also talk about the issue of capital. If there is no money, you cannot do anything. Even if you want Tinubu, the president of Nigeria today, to be the one in charge of steel, in charge of gas, they have to cash is in at the end of the day. So I don't think it is fair to blame IMF or any developmental bank for that matter for laying clear their own functionalities. If you don't want to make their functionalities, there are other developmental banks that you can turn to. And as of now, you see African countries coming to places like Russia, China, and don't let us get twisted. These countries, they also have their own conditions. They have their own conditions. Many of these developmental banks in those places have their own conditions. So I don't think it is fair to say to just IMF. Let us deal with the issue of how to manage and engineer public finance, and then we can see we have enough leverage to engage, and engage and let the global economy as a whole. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate this. We can't blame the IMF. The conditions are out there. Take it or leave it or get your house in order. Dr. Perry, you're in the conversation. Thanks for being here, sir. You know what we're talking about. IMF conditionalities. Are they helping or hurting Africa? How can they help us? How can they hurt us? What are your comments, Dr. Perry? Why is there in fact? Let me get Isa. Why Dr. Isa? Isa.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Isa. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Are you?
Very, very well, sir. Where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from Lagos. Precisely.
Excellent. Go ahead, sir. You got the floor.
what is on ground is that from the historical perspective, I would say after the colonial master left Africa, they tried to inculcate a instrument in Africa in order for them to make sure they still make Africa to be colonized. So when they left, they make us our economy to depend on the Western, and they make use of the IMF World Bank to decolonize Africa. If we are giving the resources they use, for example, the cocoa in the world now, the university today is being produced in Africa. They say the lithium that they use for factories being produced in Africa. A lot of things is being produced in Africa. If they give an Africa the avenue to develop, that means Africa will be ahead of the Europeans and the Western nations. So because of this, the find out possible means to make sure Africa remain the way they are.
How? Okay, question for you. I mean, right now in Nigeria, let's break it down to like, do you have power right now in Nigeria? Power supply in your house in Nigeria?
There is no power supply.
Whose fault?
The fault is two. We have the external force and we have the internal force. Internal force.
I mean, the point I'm trying to get to is that, I mean, in the end, you are paying tax, you are paying your tax, you are paying NEPA bill, but you have no power. Abi? Isabi, you are doing your own parts, you are paying to the government, you are paying to the power sector, but you have no power in your house. Can't really blame the government for that? Or can you blame an external party for that? I don't think so.
Okay, do you know the reason why we can blame the government? Because let's try to take the answers as a case study. When the masses protested for the answers, the brutality of the police force and the likes, what happens to it? We're having a protest before now. What has been the end to that protest? I don't know. Yes, before now, let's try to take 1990s. Things are controlling. Do you know the students, the youth movement were in full front. What happens today? Those forces are hijacked.
Okay.
By this, I don't know if you are getting it. They are being hijacked by the politicians. If anybody now to protest, so you will see them those people in the front. And when they kill those people that are leading, when they kill them short, you will see other people with fear. That's another thing. And the next thing is that many of our youth today, things we're supposed to focus on, we're not focusing on it.
All right, we gotta go. So I don't focus on IMF. So appreciate you, Issa. I've got your comments on IMF. You say sometimes conspiracy. I get that. I mean, move on.
Yes, come on.
Issa, appreciate you jumping. Doctor, I think you're ready to speak now. Let's move to Mr. Akinwale. Dr. Berry, ready to speak, or Mr. Akinwale?
I am here.
How are you, sir? You heard our comments. We're talking the IMF. Yeah. What's your take on this? I mean, is there really a case that the IMF is to contribute? I like the point made by a guy earlier that we're not putting the conscience of the politicians. Apart from that, is there a case that IMF is to blame for Africa's issues, or are we the ones that are basically doing it ourselves? Which is it, sir?
He that goes abhorring and abetting. I've lost the right to determine what the consequence and outcome of his begging and borrowing will be and what it will result to. You know, I find this so funny when Africans lament about IMF. IMF did not come to us. We went to IMF. South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Vietnam, even India and China, as at 1960, 1970, we are very far behind Nigeria. Singapore, United Arab Emirates, and then nobody was lamenting that IMF which is the gap between surplus economic units and deficit economic units. And unfortunately, Nigeria and the rest of our countries, most of them falls within that level of very highly impoverished economic deficit groups, always going hand in hand to go and borrow. And of course, he goes out, but you cannot go to your corridor and you take it out with the arms. It's the same thing that commercial banks in Nigeria do. When you go to borrow, they can even ask you to bring your father your but if you don't want to bring your father your then you can go home with your problem. So rather than lament and talk about IMF, we should look inward and ask ourselves this question. If this country had been run well, if this country had been managed well, we shouldn't actually be discussing IMF loan, World Bank loan, and what have you. I was against on arising with this. It was the same issue. 70% of our problems come from corruption and the corruption from the budgeting session. You are an economist, you understand it. You know, sometimes when I go to your page, some of the things you make it, there's a way you write, you make it so simple. And even at my level here, I will grasp along with it. But interestingly, a mass of Nigerians who are supposed to be on your page, learning and then talking to those who purport to lead us to the abusing you. I saw most of them gaslight you. Most of them, everything is turned into a religious, what I term a religious awareness. Nigeria is an economy. There are two sides of the economy, the physical side and the monetary side. And what is the role of the physical policy? The physical policy side is just how government uses spending, uses taxation to achieve stable and sustainable economic growth that impacts politically on the welfare of the masses. Monetary policy simply has to do with actions of the bankers that is defined by the monetary policies and the Central Bank of Nigeria in regulating the volumes of money in the economy to also ensure stable financial growth and stability, economic growth and stability. Now, you look at it from both points of view. You always say this. Nigeria is a very funny place. Are we borrowing to do what? If we are actually channeled most of the funds that we can be taking from IMF, from multilateral agencies, to do what is supposed to be done in this country by now will have been a net contributor to the global community. As of today, look at where we are. I say to anybody who cares to listen, if we had continued at the trajectory we were in 1970, at the time our GDP was $12.2 billion, South Korea was $9.5 billion. If we had continued on that trajectory today, we would have been over an economy that's worth over $2.7 trillion. Today is $2.252 billion. We are actually less than where we are supposed to be because of the leadership. Now, what do we do? Do we tax to eat or tax to lose? It's very funny how we run this country. Customs, we were celebrating how they were their horn, their monthly horn, the highest horn ever. And we are clapping. And we will not actually ask us the question. The average import volume in Nigeria over the last 10 years is $62 billion. Now we know that customs and excise departments, their tariff and their excise duties ranges between 35 to 70%, depending on what they are trying to collect money on. So, of the cost, even if you use the 20% rule across the volume of goods that come into this country, on a very simple scale, customs are supposed to return nothing less than $12 to $15 billion into this economy. But how much do they collect? I look at the customs are not 23, but they got the equivalent of $3 billion. So, what happened to the remaining $15 billion? Everybody look, they all leak. I mean, we are not asking questions. The truth is, if we manage our resources well, if we provide solid and sound complementary policy, physical complementary policy in Nigeria, we have no business with IMF. We have no business with World Bank. The other day, I read one funny article by the ICRC. They said for Nigeria to fix our infrastructure, we will need to definitely need to 3.8 trillion naira. Yeah. And we should look clearly in people that do not have understanding of what we need in this country. Because in 2007, under Okujiwala, working with the World Bank, this country developed a global infrastructure development master plan that clearly articulated sector by sector what we need to do to move our infrastructure from the level of the first world economy that we have today, not even third world, to even the second world. And that global plan was a massive 400-page document. 700 1 trillion, not trillion, to be able to build up this economy and fix the deficit. In the housing sector, we will spend almost about 68 trillion naira to cover the gap. From the health sector to the education sector to power to others, we know what to do. We need at least on a very sustainable basis investment inflow of $100 billion annually into this economy. And it cannot come by selling crude oil that is practically half looted. It is not going to come by the excessive over-invoicing that happens across the NGAs and the other arms of government. It's not going to be coming from taxing to loot or taxing to share or borrowing to loot or borrowing to share. It's only going to come through physical and monetary policy interplay. And it's backed by discipline, accountability, and transparency. My brother, you're doing a great job, but I can tell you for sure, your Twitter space is a Twitter space anybody who understands, who wants to understand basic economics, who wants to understand how economies are run, who wants to even learn. But of course, at the end of the day, if we have a government, we have people listening. In fact, they're supposed to every time we finish your Twitter space, they will segment among themselves and they will begin to debate how to. Of course, we know in Nigeria, political office and political office holders do not see the call to serve as a privilege and opportunity, as an exciting time to serve. They just see it as a means to loot, to steal. And the IMF, they know this, they understand this. You know, sometimes I feel so sorry when I see IMF give us money, or when I see what I feel like they actually know that these monies are going to fit and they win.
So why do they give us them? If they know, why do they give us? If they know that.
I think it's another form of neo-colonialism. Wow. I see it this way. I see it because it does not make sense to me. Carlo, you as a person, where you come from, of course, in Rwanda State, you cannot, in a family, you know somebody, if you give him money, will filter it. In my village, when you have an irresponsible son, who will always filter the wealth given to him, rather than impoverish the whole life, who will influence him. Get him something that can sustain. If possible, get him to marry. And then take out time to train his children. He has already reinforced himself as a businessman. Because continue wasting this on him, we end up impoverishing the rest of the society. It is very obvious. The IMF they know. Because it doesn't look, I feel so sad. The other day I saw Africa South Korea summit. I wept. South Korea in 1970 was well below that. Today, South Korea is catching the whole 54, 56 African nation. And you see them gather at the talks, and I'll be weeping. Who does this thing for Africa?
Well,
If Nigeria had lived up to this day, if Nigeria has lived up to its potentials, we would be having all this Russia-Africa summit, including Nigeria summit, trying to help us Africa. Then we have failed Africa, we have failed ourselves, and we continue to fail. IMF is not the problem. World Bank is not the problem. Nigeria does not have any business or any reasons to be the poverty headquarters of the world.
No.
Right from Africa, if we have focus on it and a very patriotic leadership and the sound and informed followership. Unfortunately, we don't have leadership, and the majority of us who tend to follow are so ignorant, and are so brainwashed by our ethno-religious awareness that we don't even know what to do. I hear the Bible.
Thank you. Always a pleasure having you. Big facts and passion, and we are educated when you come and when you leave. You give us lots to talk about. So I appreciate you dropping in here. I did see your interview on Arise. I've shared it. If you can, please drop on and listen to what he said on Arise. It was very enlightening. Happy Book, did you want to just, did you have a quick comment before I jump to Engineer Zach?
Yeah, just back regarding doing that the first IMF was that aligned with when oil prices were on the decline?
Correct. That was the whole. Correct. That was the whole.
Which kind of cascaded into a squeeze on the deficit. Deficits.
Correct. We had the oil boom. Can you unmute? Yeah, we had the oil boom after we had the Israeli war. With oil went up in price, Nigeria gave us a lot of money. So we increased salaries, we increased spending, then oil prices crashed, we had a deficit. Instead of Nigeria to cut down the spending deficit, we simply went and then just borrowed to maintain the lifestyle. Dr. Is that Frank Wicked, sir? Welcome to the space, sir. Hello, sir. You want to unmute and speak? Frank Wicked, Jr.? Alright, let me get. But that was the point I'm making. When we spent, we had high oil prices. Once oil prices cooled down, Nigeria did not adjust. Instead of us to stop the spending, we simply borrowed to spend. So it got to the point Nigeria had no money to even pay for imports, which was why we had to then go to the IMF to borrow. And that was the case came, yeah.
Yeah, just like the contribution, I think a lot of this as well comes from this belief or willingness to try and leapfrog our problems. Because these economic issues, the economy is difficult, and I think people don't understand how long it takes for the policy to take effect. In our history, I don't think we've ever had long-term economic planning or stopped an economic plan agenda over a decade.
I think we tried. I think under Gowon, we had this national development plans. Yeah, from 1960, Nigeria had development plans. Yes, yeah, we had it from 1960. We used to have those plans. Gowon had the national development plan. It was about 1, 2, 3. If you read those plans, that's where you see them saying build universities, build road from here. Go Google it. It's very, very detailed. You could say there was a plan to develop Nigeria according to a set framework. Even before Nigeria 1960, if you can go and Google the master plan for northern Nigeria, for eastern Nigeria, and for western Nigeria, these are detailed plans. The North had a plan to convert the entire North, all what you see be above Niger, is northern Nigeria. They had a plan to turn that place into a region that would not deal with imports but would do exports. They had agro-allied, agricultural, even slightly petroleum industries all set up in that place to export roofing sheets, tiles, beef, all that stuff was all in the plan. This was before Nigeria got independence. They had the plan written by the British. They even started to implement it. Then crude oil came. That wasn't really the issue, but the real issue was this fiscal federalism, taking away tax powers from the states to the federal. That took away the incentive of states to actually have an economy. States don't tax in Nigeria, they don't even pay. Federal government collects all the taxes and distributes. There's no incentive for a state like Kano to have ground pyramids when it's going to go to the federal and they're going to be shared across the federation. That's what we have, bro.
Yeah, I think what I was about to go with that was taking these loans down and sort of targeted economic agenda is always going to be
true.
Suicide. Because you can't, these are just cash. Without any economic development, building and manufacturing is one of the key components as well as education, innovation of the economy.
True.
You don't have a plan for that money if you're short-term, which we're seeing now. Short-term subsidy spends, any subsidies in efficiency markets, you're kicking the ball down the road, and you're eventually going to pay for it. It doesn't create any productivity gains. It's not sustainable. Yeah, in fact, but even that can be debated. So my problem is like, I don't have this both trying to sticking to a plan rather than not having a plan. Not sticking to a long-term economic plan that can implement efficiency and not wanting to go through the pain for poor economic decisions or even just natural macro factors, because externalities can affect the country. The oil price crash was an externality that affected the country. Not willing to go through the pain and wanting to try and leapfrog problems, doing our own design to our own bad decisions. It's actually where we are falling short. And a lot of African countries go to the same thing. And maybe you could tie it into politicians wanting to make sure they stay for re-election. But even at that, we've had a lot of African countries in the dictatorship that we can have that discussion, but no taking these cash loans with no plan, no actual real plan to develop the economy.
All right.
It's just to lead you back. It's just to lead you back.
Gotcha. Good talk. So let's get with Dr. Frank. Are you ready to speak? Dr. Frank, are you available to speak?
Well, yes. I don't know if you can hear me. I've been having a problem with my network.
I can hear you now, sir. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Good evening, Carlo. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I mean, I just stumbled into this space, and I'm really, really happy. Thank you so much for the work you do. I mean, I follow you on Twitter, and I follow your commentaries, the positions that you push, and everything. Like our brother, Dr. Barrier said, I mean, I like the simplicity and the way you just break it down, but regrettably, and let me not re-echo his lamentation about the kinds of people that will sometimes make such irritating and exasperating comments over things that are so simple, or seemingly so simple, but because they don't understand it, they leave those issues and begin to insult people. Now, I'm going to just, the last speaker, in fact, the last three speakers, to my mind, have largely touched upon a lot of the things I'd like to say. I want to start by addressing the specific question you asked, which is IMF helping or hurting Africa? And I'm saying I cannot put any blame on IMF. I cannot put any blame on World Bank. I cannot put any blame on any multilateral or bilateral financial institution in any part of the world in their relationship with Africa or with Nigeria in particular. There's no basis. And for someone like me, very much interested in economic development, I have also had the privilege of high office. I'm going to share an experience we had. When President Obasanjo was pushing for debt relief between 2003 and 2006, when there was a breakthrough that helped Nigeria get some debt relief and then also pay off her debts and the rest of them. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this. President Bush of the United States was very clear that America would never support the push for debt relief. And why was this? The American government said no, that these debts, right, were cured for specific reasons. And that the fact that they had ballooned out of control was because of corruption. And that to forgive the debts for which to encourage corruption, he refused. America did not back Nigeria in that instance. It was the London Club and the Paris Club that again backed Nigeria because they were convinced that under President Obasanjo, people like Obiese Kwesi, people like Okonjo Iweala, and indeed the quality, the cabinet bench quality, that they could seize very concerted efforts to make reforms. And so they supported, Chancellor Gordon supported, and the French government at the time supported, and some other bilateral, multilateral institutions around the world supported. And that was why Nigeria got the debt relief that it got. Can we look back today and say that they were wrong? The position of the American government was right. Because if you look at it today, after that debt relief, not many people are able to relate the fact that there was a leadership and a team that understood what needed to be done and applied themselves, religiously to be able to really make the difference that was made at the time. Creating the sovereign wealth fund or excess school account, which was eventually raided to this day. And Nigeria is paying for it. And does not exist in isolation. There are rules and regulations that govern global governance. Consistent, not once in a while, consistently good or right. It is today. And there's nothing in our present conduct or the conduct of our governments that even shows that we understand that we must take responsibility for the policy choices that we make as a country and as a people. And in this, not many people, I don't know the average age of people here, but I'll just take our minds back. There was a time in this country when particularly in the 70s, said that Nigeria's problem was not money but how you start blaming somebody else. Let us quit blaming colonialism and this and that. No, these guys have been done for over 60 years in some cases. Our people have been in charge. And it is not their fault that we don't have the discipline. It's not their choice. It's not their fault that Nigerians are unable to understand the issues and make the right leadership choices that will enable us to remain on the path of progress. No, it cannot be their fault. We cannot, in good conscience, say this. So, for me, all the countries that have made progress globally, none of them has made this progress by accident.
That's true.
It is through, this progress has been the product of very disciplined leadership. It's been on the basis of enlightened leadership that will challenge. This progress has not been made on account of ethnicism or mediocrity or religious extremism. No, the progress around the world has been made under the leadership of individuals who are concerned about the place of their countries under the sun, the place of their people under the sun. And today, this progress will only continue to be made, whether on an individual basis, whether it's on a local government basis, whether it's on a family basis, whether it's on a country basis or a continental basis. It's going to be on the basis of discipline and discipline. I think it was for the guy who speaks just before you asked me to speak, made reference to those development plans. Go online and see them. I'm from Enugu. Go and see the plan that was crafted, implemented under the premiership of Michael Obara. See the plan implemented under Anapata Awolowo in Western Nigeria. See what was crafted and implemented under Southern Sokoto. And you find that these guys were not joking. These were extremely serious-minded people. So please, let's quit blaming IMF.
That's so true. I made this point over again, sir. I want to make this point again, sir. That Nigeria, if you go back and look at the plans that were created during the regions, the detail, we're going to create power, we're going to employ people, we're going to use these natural resources from this region to grow jobs, create wealth. It was there, built by Nigerians, and we actually did it.
No, absolutely. So the question is this, right? So why is it? I'm glad. I follow you on Twitter. Like I said, I know what your interests are. I can, assess your capacity and everything is there. It's there for everybody to see. But look at, say, I don't want to personalize this since I don't want to make any specific reference. But let me say something. There was a time at the onset of President Obasanjo's second term when some of us came in. The IMF and some of these bilateral institutions, multilateral institutions, were actually eager to offer some loans to Nigeria. And the team said no. We didn't need it. Because we were sure that through careful and disciplined management of public finance, as the previous speaker said, mentioned, we could guide the nation on the path of recovery. And the nation indeed recovered and had surplus budget to the point of saving so much. It was squandered within how many years? Completely squandered, unaccounted for. And this condominium continues today as though we were in a period of prosperity. We are not. We are not. We are not. And so you're asking yourself, what man of leadership will be so unmindful and oblivious to where we are today, to continue the path in which they have continued? Look at this National Assembly, for goodness sake. How can inactions affecting the nation and that it will ultimately get to you as political leaders? What is the difficulty in understanding it? Do you listen to them at all? Do they sound like serious people? Excuse me, but I'm really getting upset right now. Do they sound like people who understand what state practice is about? What national development is about? Do they really understand? Do they sound it? I don't know if you saw the clip of some gentleman on channels was asking about the vehicle purchases. Did you listen to that man? The senator in Nigeria? Yeah. Have you listened to that? Have you listened to the Senate president? Have you listened to him? Have you listened to others? The
kinds of conversations taking place in Nigeria at this time, in spite of where we are as a nation.
Well,
Not to blame anybody.
so
Speaking, I was teaching, I think, the executive court participants for the three academics, and I made a statement. That statement I made was, listen, Nigeria's problem is not a policy problem. Because, as you have heard, whether it's from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you name it, there's a policy almost about everything under the sun. It's not a policy problem. There's nothing that we want to fix today that we don't already have a policy, that all we need to do is to take it, find the people with the capacity, and pray for them to have the discipline to make it fruition. It is a people problem. It's a leadership problem. So I'm not going to take more time because people have spoken at length, and I think I'm basically just reinforcing what you asked me today. It's a leadership challenge in Africa. It's a leadership challenge. It's not blame China, don't blame the US, don't blame the West, don't blame anybody, because
I, Mr. Frank, what I realized in everybody's conversation is no one has spoken out something of a solution to the problem. We have spoken around the problem, but no one has emphasized on anything that can solve this issue, and that is where we have a problem in Africa.
Okay. I'll tell you what the problem is. You don't have to listen. You know, I know the problem.
We know the problem. The solutions are what I am concerned about. Okay, first of all, I would not like to engage you in this conversation. I would like you to end your conversation and I go back and start from where I would love to start from. I'm expecting Mr. Carlo to call on me, but I have refused to, and I don't know why. And we're going to criticize him online so much. That's the problem.
But it's okay. We can disagree, you know, in a very civil way, in a very respectful way. I agree with you. The question I'm going to ask you is this, right? Every country, you have a national leadership, right? You have a government in place. All right? But as a citizen, what do I think is my role? My role under that circumstance is to be a good citizen. What does it mean to be a good citizen? I like to fulfill my civic duties and my responsibilities. I like to be able to hold my government accountable, right? And when you speak, please, if you have any thoughts on how one can be a good citizen, please, I would like you to share so that we can copy and follow you. But we have a government in place.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's why I'm on this space. I'm not here to criticize anyone. That's why I'm on this space. To contribute to a better nation. That's why I'm on this space.
Yeah, okay.
Go for it. I mean, you said we didn't call you up, but you can. If we didn't call you up, you won't be able to speak. So you've been called up. So go ahead, sir.
So let's start with first of all, Mr. Kalu, thanks for operating this space. First of all, I'm going to go to the roots for the creation of this space, which is the Kenya crisis. I feel Kenya has destroyed one of the developing nations in the world because of ignorance. The Kenyan youth could have solved that problem without destruction and could have helped the nation continue that development that was going on. But now, I'm one of those people that was interested in traveling to Kenya from Nigeria, but I don't think that's necessary. You know, I don't see any economic advantage of doing that. So let's end up. Now let's go to Nigeria. First off, the first thing I think we should implement in this country, and nobody's speaking about, is education. We totally forget that for any nation to grow, there's a need for constant development of education. We still have to go on strike. I remember a couple of years back, there was an argument between Christian and the ASU chairman. And Christian, a politician, was throwing the ASU chairman in the debate. It was an insult to that man, an educationist. That is a part. I was ashamed of myself as an educationist. I'm like, wow, really? That was, there was nothing else there. It could not. Christian had a book jotting down the points he wanted to use against him in the argument on it. And that man was just shouting. That shows that education has deteriorated to the point where even the ASU chairman is looking like a donut. And yes, the government is the problem. The government in Lagos State, I'm a Lagos State teacher, and I can say this, that Lagos State is trying their possible best in every area of education to sponsor education to place where everybody has a package in it. But when you go to other regions, is that happening? Imagine if the Kenyan youth were already educated and they let go out of the fact that IMF was not their problem. And taxation is one of the things that make an economy grow. I don't think you would have gone on that process. I don't think that destruction would have been necessary. We forget these things as a nation. One of the solutions to the problem was okay, so we start educating everybody that can be educated. Look, education is not all about 4 walls. I encourage you going to a program at the University of Maryland, education and additional planning. We don't really need to sit people down physically. There are different ways of educating people. One of it is what is going on right here, right now. We are educating ourselves right here, right now, on so many issues that I am telling you that this is the first time I realize that IMF is not Africa's problem. I have always thought that IMF has enslaved us, but I have realized that they have never enslaved us. They are trying to help us, but so many things are hindering that help from marginalizing. And we, as citizens of African countries, all we do is complain about how we colonize us, how they don't want to let us grow, how we are in slavery, etc. This is the mindset. If we educate ourselves, that mindset will shift. Okay. It is a bad mindset to feel that we are still under slavery. Let those people that are enslaved us fought for our freedom wars. I can remember I was still a student. I know the level of law that happened in England to religious bodies and the government. Yes, I'm listening.
Just to go back to the Kenyan issue. So the Kenyan youth are essentially saying that their politicians, they protested before the bill was passed. They gave point by point debates back to their leaders and said, you can't sign this. If you sign this, you are taxing us, but you haven't cut down your own expenses. Point by point. And the leadership did not listen to them. So
this is Africa. Let's say with ourselves. That cannot be cut down.
Like which cost?
It is not as a politician.
Like
security.
Did he? Okay, but
now went around with other escorts and was killed.
Okay.
We don't go back to history. Okay. What history does to us is it brings the past to the present to correct issues in the present.
What the salary? The salary. The salaries. I think you've got to let's have a back. The salaries of the Kenyan MPs are higher than any country on earth per capita per GDP. Kenyan. Why did they reduce their salaries when they increased taxes? They didn't do that. Can they do that?
I have a theory to the salaries they pay politicians, and this is my story. Medicine, becoming a medical doctor is a career. Becoming a lecturer is a career. Becoming a politician is a career. Most politicians would have sacrificed finances. The same way a medical doctor would have sacrificed finances to become a medical doctor. So nobody will tell me that. Nobody will tell me that you invest in something and no one to profit out of it.
So what you're saying is that. So what you're saying is that the Kenyan politicians invested to serve the people by demanding the highest salaries on earth. I get you. We have been paid the highest. Again, let me repeat myself. Sorry, I'm not being misquoted. If you Google it, per capita per GDP, the Kenyan MPs are the highest in the world, even more than Nigerian MPs. So what you are arguing? What Nigeria? Let's Nigeria. The Nigerian. Let's Nigeria.
I don't want to divert from the reason why I'm here. I'm here to contribute, not to criticize anybody, not to speak against any government. So any government. I'm here to have the little I think is a solution to the problem of Nigerian, and that is all. Okay. So let me do what I have to do and leave the space.
I think you said education, which was very good. I agree with that. You said education, so you have maybe a minute or two more, so if you don't mind.
No problem. The second thing is, let us protest for the right thing. If people can come out today and tell me that the only reason Nigeria wants to protest for regionalism, I am ready to be at the forefront of it. Not stupid thing like EFCC, like stuff that we know will end lives and the result is nothing will be done.
Perfect.
We protest over stupid things in this country. When we want to protest, let us protest for something that can actually get us the change. Bad governance. Nobody will be in that place and want to step down because the government is bad. But you still protest. Headlights for no reason. At the end of the day, you will end everything and go back to your office. Those lives don't stay. When you know that you can peacefully protest for regionalism and your life will be aired. Because every logical person, every state person will know that these people want the change truly.
Alright.
Regionalism in this country has worked for us.
Okay.
So I think youth in this country needs to set aside of that.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much.
Good point. Just closing arguments is just going to be that you are in a democracy asking people to protest based on what you think is right for them to protest on. People can protest for big brand Nigeria in a democracy. Nobody can tell anyone what you should protest for. It's called a democracy because everybody, where two or three are gathered, you can go and protest peacefully to your government. And government works for you, you don't work for your government. Let me get Leonard. Leonard,
I've never been there.
Thank you, Carlo, and thank you for the footnotes on the last speaker's comment. I was getting a bit worried about the presentation. Thank you. So when I first wanted to speak was when the intellectual documents passed away about neo-colonialism, IMF, and I don't think there's need to bring a balance to that conversation. And I believe Dr. Berry and Dr. Onweke did that.
But I'll just add a few thoughts to that. Now, the problem, and I've studied neo-colonialism, strategic studies, global affairs, and all that.
And what I realize is that the problem is not the IMF, not the World Bank, not the WTO. I'm not part in international trade, not the WTO. The problem is how leadership has engaged with these institutions and engaged with the domestic circumstances to build a nation. And this multiplies all across Africa. You know, the kind of elite consensus that we require in Nigeria to build a productive economy is what is lacking. Like Dr. Onweke have said, and Dr. Berry have said, we have leaders who essentially do not understand statecraft. And by that I mean, if you understood statecraft, it determines how you deal with these multilateral institutions. What you say yes to, what you say no to. And examples of countries that have done this. If you understand statecraft, it determines how you deal even in your bilateral relationships, whether within Africa, within West Africa. At the moment I'm doing a project for the ECOWAS, so I'm covering the region of West Africa. What role does Nigeria play in engagement between Nigeria and West Africa in the possible? Between Nigeria and the West Africa in the possible? Statecraft. It's statecraft that determines how you structure this. At the end of the day, we'll come back to Nigeria. The problem is basically structural, how you structure the country. You know, so if you look back at the days, you can call the days of prosperity. Those were the days when we had regional governance. And the economy was structured to be productive. And that is the missing link. We've lived more on a rentier economy for the past 50 or so years now. And we can't come and say, it's IMF this, is World Bank this. No, they exist for a reason. If you don't have the need to borrow money, then IMF cannot tell you what conditions or how to run your economy. But we run ourselves around. We go to the IMF, and then we scream at their conditions. So that's the problem. So I'm
So until we make ourselves the
They sacrificed.
that we need to run our nations the way serious-minded people run their nations. We can't blame anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's get Engineer Zach. Engineer Zach, hop right in. Engineer Zach,
good evening, Mr. Kalu.
How are you doing, sir? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Abuja.
Excellent, sir. You've got the floor. Go for it.
All right. First, I would want to thank you. Your page has been educative, and that I'm getting my second degree in economics. Thanks to you for doing you on this way.
Send you my bill.
I want to put my point this way. African problem is we don't have anybody to blame for African problem. African problem is just three: it's leadership, management, and followership. Leadership in the sense that we get this loan, mismanage it, and we have to live with the terms of the loan. Then the people that are supposed to speak out, they don't speak out, and at the end blame the people that we want to get this money. I don't know if you're getting my point. So the clear solution is we as a people have to first speak up. We have to speak up to our leaders. We have to speak up and come from the solution aspect. I don't want to blame the IMF because clearly there's nothing to blame them for. If you come to anybody to take a loan, you have to live with their terms. They are business, they are money-making organizations. So if you go there, it is not their responsibility to tell you how to make use of your money. They only do that to protect their own interests. So they give you the terms to protect their interests in a way they can get their money back. So I believe the simple point I want to make is, one, we as a people need to understand that, one, the leaders are there to make decisions on our behalf. And we have to put them in order. We have to correct them. I like what Kenya people are doing. Seriously, I like what they are doing. It's time to say enough is enough. It's time for people to rise to leaders and tell them this you're doing is wrong. If you're taking this loan and you are telling us, okay, we are taking this loan because we want to use it for infrastructure development, within this also span, within this also period of time, we should be able to say this loan should be able to hold the government accountable. If they did not achieve this loan, what was it used for? So in a situation we don't do that, and they keep borrowing, the IMF keep giving them because they have to protect their own interests. We should not blame anybody. That is just the point I wanted to make.
All right.
There's nothing more to say about IMF to be blamed. I believe the leadership has to be blamed. IMF is a money-making organization. They are there to give you loan as their own interests.
Gotcha.
So that is not my point.
Thanks, engineer. Again, just to reset the room, guys. We're talking IMF, World Bank, SAP, all economic policies around these multinational development and lending institutions. I mean, we've seen what's happening in Kenya, even in Nigeria, even in Africa. There's always this narrative that the IMF is here to, pull Africa down. We've still at the intro that the IMF has conditionalities that you must take if you want to borrow, and those conditionalities are designed to extract efficiency and resources from the host economy to be able to start to repay so that the commercial lenders can then come back. You go to IMF when you are already in trouble. You don't go get into trouble. Do you get a point? You are already in trouble, then you go to the IMF. It's not IMF that puts you in trouble. Just put that context out there for folks. Emeka Igwe, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead, sir. Emeka Igwe, go ahead, sir. Thanks for holding on.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You've got about 2 minutes. Go for it. 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. I would like to say that first and foremost, the people of Nigeria, the government, and IMF are the problem. The reason is that we all have responsibilities. The people have responsibility to hold their government accountable. The government has its own responsibility to manage the resources of the people. Okay? And IMF has its own. IMF does not exist in isolation, just like other organizations. It has its rules and regulations. seeing these guys are professionals. They have the data, the indices, everything is there. They can see clearly more than every other person. Now, you have been giving loan to these countries, and you have seen that they were not spreading those loans. You are seeing the indices, you are seeing the data, you are seeing the inflation rate, you are seeing all these things, and you have responsibility as an IMF to make sure that these countries you are giving loan, that they address the problems which they are seeking the loan. So anybody that is coming here and telling us that IMF is not a problem, it means that we're not telling ourselves the truth. Okay, IMF has its own responsibility, just like every bank. If a bank and a company approach you for a loan, and you know that country has been bankrupt several times, are you going to give that the company must have met the requirements of the loan? So for you to be issued a loan, you have to meet the requirements. And if you have not met the requirement for a number of times, I don't think the responsible financial institution will issue out such loan because they're not giving grants. They're giving out loan.
Gotcha.
That is why I said IMF is the problem. Now, the people that
time is almost up, sir.
somebody mentioned,
Your time is almost up, sir.
all right, thank you. That's just what I want to contribute. Then if you come to the country, Nigeria, when people try to hold their government responsible and accountable, it ended up being true when they are protesting. Even people will take them as a case study. Several times when
all right, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on.
Over the injustices of people in leadership. Thank you.
All right, let me get Oxley. Oxley, go for it. Some of Adi, you mute your mic. Some of I just mute your mic. Oxley, please go for it. Oxley, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here.
Oxley, go ahead, so I can hear you. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. A lot has been said, so my only addition is we can sit down here and pontificate why on how IMF is the problem, but it's not the problem. But IMF is they are in business, development finance institution. They are in business to fund to provide for funding for people that need them. And from what people in some of the president has already said, if you go to a bank, it is the bank that will give you the condition, what they call condition precedent to draw down. If you don't meet that condition, whatever the condition is, you're not going to draw down the facility. So I the World Bank, let's even not go far. Even our development finance institution in Africa are already doing the same. Right? We have the affiliates. Affiliates give us $2.5 billion that they even use crude. They even, lien about, I think it's 200,000 barrels or 300,000 barrels per day. It was a lien, nobody touches that. It's from source. So once you are lifting they lift there because that's the way the law was structured. So even the development finance institution here in Africa are doing the African Development Bank. You don't walk in there and they give you at maybe 2% or even 0 interest rate and you just walk out and there's no conditions. They are doing the same affairs in IFC, African Development Bank. So they are taking from what the World Bank and the IMF is doing. So my point is there is a condition precedent to draw down. If you are ready to meet it, that's the only way you get the loan. So the problem is not necessary. Let's not sit down here and blame IMF. We have a leadership problem. Remember, IMF will give you money. They wouldn't come to tell you how to spend the money, whether you are going to buy IG. You collect 2.5 billion from them. You can decide to use it to buy an aircraft. Well, I don't know how the monetary system works to see whether they ensure that what you are supposed to use that money for, you can use it. Otherwise, if they are borrowing us money for
lines. Frank Winter Jr. was here. Let me try to read between these lines. When you had the administration that had quality on the playing field, loans were offered and were not taken. Now it's almost like every week I open a paper, I see a new loan. There's a new loan for humanitarian. Can you believe that? We are borrowing money in dollars to give to people in naira. Yeah. And I don't, honestly speaking, I don't mind it. If Nigeria borrows $1 billion and actually takes 25,000 naira and actually gives to poor people to go and consume, to buy bread and eat, honestly, I would say maybe it's charity. I would not mind. The problem is that the poor people are not getting that 25,000. The money is in Dubai. That's the problem. If that money had actually gone to the villages, in my village, in your village, where they have poor people, and those poor people consume, that generates demand, that creates jobs in factories in the cities, that then creates wealth. So that borrowing, translates into economic activity. You borrow dollars, $500 million, you give to people in Nigeria to spend. We will see the effect now. Just think about your village and think about if somebody in your village gave every poor person in your village every month 25,000 in your village. Just take your mind back to your village. What do you think happens to your village? If everyone in your village, if family gets 25,000, how much is their food? Their kids will go to school, they will buy new clothes, they will buy food, they will buy TV. Look at the demand that will occur in those villages. People now have to build the road to the village because the village now has people that can spend. So Coca-Cola will say, okay, let's put one small distribution center near the village because the villagers can afford Coca-Cola, they can afford Cerelac, they can afford diaper. So you will actually see a stimulative effect on that borrowing. But we don't do it. The money is taken. The lady that took the money, this is not rumor. BBT, EFCC has said they recovered nearly 50 billion from the 2 ladies. EFCC, not rumor. Okay, if they recovered the money, which means that the money was taken illegally, why are they not in jail today? The Boreski that was spraying dollar is in Kirikiri, that was spraying naira. Spraying, he didn't steal his own naira, he sprayed it, he's in jail. You've recovered 50 billion from 3 ladies. Where are they? No, we got it. You're very close. You're very close. You're very close. Okay, real quick.
So making my point in 10 seconds, the point is very simple. We have a problem. The second Niger bridge was financed with one of their partner groups, and they insisted that the money must go directly into that project. So maybe what IMF and the other global finance needs to do is to even get involved and say, this project is what you're going to do with this money. You're not going to take it elsewhere, otherwise we will not give you for that. So loans should be tied to projects. If you need to give a government loan and give them the latitude to spend or whatever they like, it doesn't make any sense. It looks to me like colonialism. They just want to tie us up, put us in a lot of burden and use that to control people all over the place. But it's not their approach.
Good point. Targeted revenue bonds that are targeted towards projects. I can go to sleep with that. Mr. Jack, the builder, you've got the floor, sir. Thank you, Oxley. Jack, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Carlo. Good evening, everyone. Good to be here. Okay, so just very quickly, I think that Nigeria is such a beautiful place where we blame every other person, aside ourselves, as people, as a people. For me, I would not blame any international financial organization, not IMF, not African Bank, not African Development Bank, or the likes of them. The point is very simple. I think we don't just lack leadership, we also lack followership. That's number one. And then we have very short-sighted people, leaders everywhere, in this country, particularly those that have found themselves in leadership position. You see, every other day I shout about the fact that there is no country in the world that can operate the kind of procurement laws or the procurement system we operate in Nigeria that will move forward. It's not possible. I mean, how do you run a country that contracts are being mapped up by 1,000% and nobody is talking about it? We have too many greedy people littered everywhere. People really don't care about this country, really. Like, everybody just wants to see what they can get off the country. And this is not just about the federal government, by the way. It trickles down even to the local government. Every single person along the line, even civil servants. So when you talk about the loans we borrow, let's even leave the loans. Let's discuss, the resources we generate internally as a nation, yeah, from the money we make from crude and customs, FIRS. Just was it yesterday? Someone was talking about the stamp duties that were not reported, or that have not gone into the preparation account. About the 8 trillion Nigerian, I don't know how true that is. But when you look at Nigeria, this structure, like the way we operate this thing called government, is not sustainable. There is no way we will move forward like this. And this is why, some of us were more concerned about the kind of leadership we're going to get in the last election cycle. And we thought about, look, if everybody is going to come here and talk about, until we're able to fix our leadership in this country and be able to get people that understand where we are as a nation. Because, how could anybody in this country, after 8 years of visionlessness in the last administration, you still go back and vote people, the same set of people that actually kept quiet and supported this kind of individual.
All right, got you.
We expect something different.
I got you. I want to keep the focus really on that sliver.
I know.
I want to keep it.
Sorry, my brother, because
everything
we are discussing boils down to leadership.
Yeah, but I want to keep it.
If you're not able to get leadership that understands what needs to be done, then we are just wasting our time. This is the point. That's the truth.
Okay, I hear you.
We have to say it at every given point in time.
All right, so look at Kenneth. Kenneth, go for it. Kenneth, Okwa, PhD, go for it.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
Yes, sir.
For me, fund financing is tied to a need, a balance of payments need, and that need will be actual, potential, prospective, or protracted. The point is that there is a need. So the country is already in a very bad shape when it applies to the fund for financing, or in some cases, the country envisages that it will be in a bad shape in the near term, so it takes fund financing on a precautionary basis. And there are examples of countries that have successfully used fund financing to solve their POP problems. And I don't see anybody praising the fund for helping those countries. So why would we now start attacking the fund when we have countries that have not successfully used fund financing to solve their POP problems?
You mean balance of payments, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, balance of payments. The fund only uses financing to solve balance of payments problems. That's the only reason why the fund is financing. Now, unlike many countries see Haiti, where you can have those problems arise on account of natural disasters. In Africa, and by Africa I mean Nigeria and Kenya, POP problems are largely caused by fiscal indiscipline and profit. Right? So, when you have countries that are already in a very bad shape, into the fund, what the fund does is that it gives them headroom, some fiscal headroom, by providing money to enable them undertake the difficult adjustments that they would need to undertake in any case in order to solve those problems. So when people blame the fund for country's bad situation, to me it just seems like lack of understanding of why the fund exists or what the fund does, and kind of financing or the purpose of the financing that the fund provides. And interestingly, 2 weeks ago, there was a paper delivered at the annual conference of the political economy, annual conference of the Organization of Political Economy of International Organizations, and the title of that paper is Perfect Scapegoats, Blaming and Defending the IMF.
Interesting.
Right? So I'll to just go over and sort have a clear understanding of these issues, actually is perfect skill books living and defending the IMF. So I think that people will need to understand why the IMF exists and why it provides financing, because it's very different from the World Bank, very different from the AFDB. Right? The IMF financing targets balance of payments problems, and that is when the purpose why it gives finance. So when a country comes to the IMF, it's in a bad place, and the adjustments that those things that are called conditionalities are really adjustments that the country has to make in any case to get out of those problems. So we need to, I think, educate ourselves on what the fund does, right? And then that will, help us know that a bad government is a bad government at the end of the day.
Yeah, excellent point you've made, right? I think we said at the very, very top of the space saying that, listen, you go there when you're in trouble. But I want to ask you, someone made a comment a long time ago. It says that why doesn't the IMF put as part of its conditionalities the government should reduce expenses, the government should not spend more than this on frivolities? Why is it only like the subsidy side, the VAT side? Do you have any insight into that? I mean, it's a valid question, right?
At the end of the day, the economic policies that are pursued on an IMF program are policies that the government takes ownership of. So they are really policies of the government, not policies imposed by the IMF, right? And you should also remember that these countries are sovereign states, so there's a limit to which you can dictate to them.
You're alone. It's not that sovereign, is it? If a country comes to you and says, we cannot, because when you go to the IMF, it means you cannot get a loan anywhere else. So, in quote unquote, they are your slave, quote unquote. I'm not maybe harsh word, but at that point of lending, you have the power. You can say you must take this loan. You cannot increase salaries. You cannot buy a new private jet. You cannot go for trading tours abroad. Things like that. Even though it's figurative or symbolic, but why do you never put it in there?
There are governance commitments.
Okay.
Right? There are governance commitments. There are commitments on public financial management, right? But at the end of the day, there are commitments. And it's really for the government to take ownership and implement those commitments.
Gotcha. Well said, I hear you. Just since you are talking papers, I did find a paper in Nigeria. It's called The Adjustment of Nigeria's Selected Macroeconomic Variables to the IMF Conditionalities. This is a paper from 1986 till 2016. It's done by the University of University in Oka by Professor Amaka Chinelo and Lucio Kolo. Both of them did. Look at their findings. IMF conditionality has no significant effect on GDP of Nigeria. IMF conditionality has no significant effect on gross capital formation, and the IMF conditionality has no significant effect on national savings or national economy. So in effect,
Nigeria has 5 IMF programs.
But we are not that PMI. We do that policy support instrument thingy. Why we run the economy? We're trying to increase VAT, remove subsidies. That's still in line with that whole PSI framework that IMF. So
yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just making the point that this in the end they take what they have on paper and then what Nigeria is practicing. Sometimes there's a diversion. And again, I think it's because of the total gap in infrastructure, because these guys, I don't think, like I said, they don't assume that a country as big, as diverse, as rich as Nigeria will only move food by road, will only grow food by rainfall, and maybe, for instance, has no power supply, is powered by generators. They don't assume these things would be real, that Nigeria surely would have moved on and generated power. It's amazing. If you think about it, well, we live in Nigeria, we're used to it. But we run our power with generators. You have to leave Nigeria for a long period of time to understand that Nigeria is not a functional economy. You can't run an economy with generators. But in Nigeria, it's standard practice. Once it is being built, generator bay, 4 giant generators for every institution. The presidency, NEPA, the distribution, everybody has a generator in Nigeria. Everybody.
Yes, that makes sense. It goes back to the point I made that I'm financing a is to enable a country solve adjustments in its balance of payments.
No, not the no.
Yes.
Well taken.
That is the only purpose.
Okay, well taken. Point well taken. Let's get Mohammed in here. Mohammed N. I don't know if I have your real name, but Mohammed N. You've got the floor, sir. Please go ahead. Kenneth, I appreciate those comments. Very, very well taken. Go ahead, Mohammed. Mohammed, you were speaking, but I'm not hearing you. So let me move to Sam Vivo. Sam Vivo, Mohammed, if you get that, or just put your hand up and I'll add you back in. Sam Vivo, you've got the floor. Okay, Mohammed, go for it. You can speak, go for it. I couldn't hear you. Still can't hear you. All right, let's get, is it Vera Matic Media?
Vera Matic Media.
All right, how you doing?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
What I have to say is this. I can't completely blame IMF and World Bank, but in a way I can still blame them. This is why. Blaming the IMF is like seeing a gambler and blaming the betting company for
the gambler.
His addiction. You understand? The gambler has the responsibility of betting responsibly.
Yeah.
So in that case, I can't completely blame IMF. But the question is this: who is to gain from the downfall of those that are borrowing the money, which is mostly the third and the fourth world countries? Who are those to blame? Who are those behind the IMF and World Bank? Who are the ones in control? You understand? So we need to look at the benefactors of these rules that are being placed onto the countries that borrow a lot of money. So when we look at that, we'll be able to understand the situation better. So for the solution, I think the solution is on both the people and the leaders. Because whenever I talk to average Nigerians, and I kind of see the way they rationalize the kind of leaders that they put into position, I know that we are not there yet. We are not there yet because an average Nigerian will first consider religion and ethnicity before anything else. They don't even look at competence. They look at the religion and ethnicity, then the competence comes after. The moment we get to a point where we can look away from religion and ethnicity, things will start to change and people will start to make the right decisions to putting the right people into power who won't be addicts or gamblers, but people that will enter there and change the system into a system where we won't be dependent on exports, foreign aids, borrowing, and all those stuff. Thank you.
Gotcha. I mean,
sorry, if I can make one quick clarification here. Okay. If you see gamblers, almost all low-income countries who are eligible for IDA financing get concessional financing from the IMF. So the IMF makes no money from them.
So I think the IMF is.
The more you take, the more money the IMF makes. It's quite the opposite is true. Financing them is a burden.
Because you got to go back to why the IMF is created. I mean, it's not really about the money. The IMF was created because of the First World War issue, Second World War issue, where you had a post-Germany that had high inflation, that then led to the dysfunctional political system, that led to the Third Reich, right? So what they are trying to say, we want to stop countries doing arbitrary devaluations, inflation, killing the economy. So for them, it's like, if we can come in at the nations that have balance of payment issues and solve it there, then we have less Sri Lankas, less Somalias. Exactly. That's what they're trying to do.
You want the risk for competitive devaluations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Which means that Nigeria, for instance, could say, because we don't have any money, we're going to devalue the Naira to 10,000 to 1 because we want to sell more cocoa. That would mean that foreigners will rush Nigeria to buy cocoa from Nigeria, not to Cote d'Ivoire or Ghana, because it's cheaper in Nigeria. But what will then occur is that the economy in Nigeria will crash so much that Nigeria will rise up, there will be crisis, and they'll have to come and send a 6 ATM, which will cost more money. So that's what the IMF is trying to do. But because it's like when you have malaria, you take chloroquine. Chloroquine is very, very bitter, but you have malaria. That's, I think, just the way you can explain that, what they're doing here. All right, Vera, I appreciate that. Yeah. Vera, hi. Okay, that's St. Augustine. Hey guys, we've got about 30 minutes to go to shut down the space, right? Great topic. I've learned a lot. Thanks guys for being here for about 30 minutes. So we'll take all the comments, get all our views in, learn. That's what we do here. St. Augustine, you've got the floor. Go for it. Vera, thank you so much.
Good evening. And to all the distinguished persons here, I've actually gotten a lot of good information from everybody. I'll just make this short because of time. Just what I want to say. The IMF is a global body. They have their role to play. They will not force you to take loans. So, as a country, you go to them, they will give you their conditions, just like the normal banks will have in Nigeria. What you do with the money, if you're writing in government, is your own cup of tea. They're not going to babysit you. The conditions that come with those loans are normal. Just like banks in Nigeria, when they want to borrow to you, they give you their conditions. You don't have to take this money. Second, I'm sure Argentina today are also borrowing from the IMF. We've seen how the man that went in there last year, about the same time our guy entered, has performed, and how the inflation figures have turned around. So basically, it comes down to how you manage your resources. In times of crisis, natural crisis like this, it's common sense. You downsize, you cut costs. So I don't get it why a country like Kenya, for instance, to pay its MPs so much when they are borrowers. It makes sense to me. What boils down to the basic thing you keep saying. We'll let the economics together. This is not rocket science. I mean, people need to live well. If they live well, yes, you can come as a government and things are bad. It doesn't make any sense for me to start living luxuriously and buying jeeps and buying planes and so on in the lean period. Of course, if you manage your economy well and it turns around, you can splurge a bit. Nobody will cry at you. You see care of what they're doing because they know they're the ones that will serve those rules in the future.
True.
So,
governments don't.
It always boils down to what I always try to say.
Yeah. Governments don't pay back loans. People pay back loans. So if the government borrows, you pay back. Yeah, Argentina is the biggest borrower from the IMF, 31 billion. That's what Argentina has borrowed. But they see that president is cutting. I mean, you saw him on that jet. He was flying commercial to go see his girlfriend. People said, "Oh, it's a stunt." But it's the way he's communicating that. Listen, I'm going to cut costs personally. So in Nigeria, we have the same inflation, but we are buying a new private jet. The contrast could not be stronger. Argentina has inflation. That the guy is flying commercial on a private visit. But Nigeria, we're also buying presidential. We don't need a new presidential jet. If the jet is parked, actually they should celebrate. Oh, we're not going to spend on this jet. Take the money and put it to a student loan and then move on. So
let me help us there. This jet issue. Why not that they have about 10 of those places? Sell it. Use the money from those things. Add a little few naira. Buy one for the man to fly about. Let's have peace.
Yeah, they have one big one that can go intercontinental. The rest, all these small private jets can go in Africa. But again, it's 10. We have it's too much. Or convert everything to an airline. And then put it commercial in Nigeria. The man wants to fly, he takes his plane and flies. But when it's not flying, it should do Lagos to Abuja, make revenues for the nation. That's what I think you should just give it to Airpeace or whoever to run. When the man wants to fly, he'll call his plane back, he'll fly, come back, pay Airpeace to pay tax. We move on. Let's just move on with this jet thing and all that. Abdul Hassan Momraz, how are you, sir? Welcome to the party. St. Augustine, appreciate you.
I'm good.
Abdul, where are you coming from?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very loud and clear.
Yeah, mine's contribution on the topic is IMF helping or having an African country.
continent is about 1 billion continent that sit on national soil, that if it's tapped and well managed, that you can prosper and get a value for our resource without dependence on other nation. The greatest challenge that we have is a policy reconstruction. We need to have policies that impact on life and policies that change the fortune of Africans, since we have 1 billion continent. That's my take.
I'm not sure I got you.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm not sure I got that clearly. Could you say that again, sir? I'm not sure if I got that.
What I'm trying to explain is that in the African continent, we are 1 billion continent, a continent that has massive resources that if tapped well, we can be prosperous continent. That's what I mean.
I agree with you. So you're saying there's no need to borrow. If we simply had got our house in order and we're exporting, we would have all this. We won't be broke, and because we're not broke, we won't borrow. Completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Yeah. Completely agree. You're welcome. Bro Nero, you've got the floor. Go ahead and shoot.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Kalu. Thank you for the opportunity here. I've listened to a couple of speakers, and I believe I've heard multiple sides of this discussion. For me personally, the IMF cannot be seen to.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Mohammed, yes, but once he's speaking, you can come out. Just hang on. Please go ahead.
Okay. So for me, the IMF cannot be seen to be the problem. No, it's just a lazy man's way of doing things. You going to someone to get asked a loan is based on the fact that you require the financial assistance at that moment. So if that person gives you the loan with conditions, it is left up to you to decide to accept or reject. You cannot accept loans based on certain specified conditions, then come back afterwards and say the conditions are a problem to me. So we should just drop that discussion. The IMF is nobody's problem. I've also listened to multiple speakers talk about our leaders being the problem and having leaders that do not understand statecraft. Yeah, so I would like us to focus a bit on that. According to the Constitution of Nigeria and most constitutions around the world, the security and welfare of the people should be the primary responsibility of government. So if you have a situation where the country is unsafe, people cannot move around freely, people cannot feed, there is hardship, then the government has failed. So if we're going to be looking for the problem, we already know the problem. The problem is the government or successive governments. We're not going to say we want to blame the current government because what we have currently is just a resultant of several years of mismanagement. So the problem has been leadership all this while. So we all know the problem, and I believe it's quite easy to tell the solution. Exchanging political ideology or exchanging political leadership. I wouldn't want to make this space too political, but we should just be clear with ourselves. If we want to get things done right, we all have to get involved, like actively involved, and determine political outcomes. You need to get the right people in place. The laws are there, the economic laws, the policies are there. If you go to the presidential archives, you have lots of policy ideas that have been drafted. We just need people competent and willing to execute these policies. We need people competent and willing to effect economic laws. So we shouldn't be dragging the discussion from multiple sides. The solution is simple.
Gotcha.
Get the right leaders.
All right.
And we're out of it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mohammed, go to the floor.
Okay.
Yeah, hello, Mohammed. Where are you calling from?
Yeah, yeah, I'm calling from New Delhi, India. Thank you for the opportunity, and I've been following the space. Very wonderful and very insightful. I just have two things to share because of time. I think the IMF, as it is, or any other corporation that are, assisting countries, or rather in the, developmental side of things, shouldn't be paid. The first thing is for any country, like, every company should have a decisive framework. First of all, the strategy of why we're taking the loan, and, the appropriate channels to, put this loan to. Secondly is the issue of representation. You cannot have people representing you to, access these loans or whatever. And number one, maybe their integrity is to put into question. And secondly, also the, competence. I've read in a book where, it was clearly stated that, for organizations like IMF and so on, in Africa, there is this question of, whether, they're taking advantage of the African countries and so on. But when you go to the Asian side of the world, for example, I've, stayed in China and all, that they have a system of meticulously, reviewing whatever it is that is put into the table to them. For example, for corporations like IMF and so on, whenever they want to, access, funds or, loan or whatever you might call it, they try to negotiate and make sure that they review the whole terms of, the loan or the fund they're trying to access to make sure that it aligns with the, framework or the policy of their own country. And they sit on the negotiation table to discuss with the, IMF or whichever corporation it is that this is what we're trying to achieve and this is what's there in your document. And from there, they can carry it to, what best interests their country. At the end of the day, IMF, like any other, corporation, also have their own interests. They're not a charity organization, So this is the second thing. And then thirdly, a lot of the people that have spoken about this, is that, when you're drowning inside the water and someone offers you, a helping hand to throw you out, sometimes, all you have to do is grab the hand, and then after coming out, you try to, save yourself from not drowning again. But I think here is where, a lot of the African countries don't learn from their previous mistakes. Thank you very much, and this is all I have to say.
Appreciate it. I also just...
Hello. Mr. Carlo, good evening.
You're gonna hold on. I also just Googled that India has not taken any financial...
Hello, hi, Mr. Kenneth. I can hear you, but I cannot hear any other person. Can you hear me, please?
I can hear you. I was just highlighting that India hasn't taken any final... let me see.
Hello?
I'm so sorry. Alright, go ahead. This is Ebon. Was it Ebon that was speaking? Ebon, is that you or Mr. Ike? Who was speaking, please?
Hello, Mr. Carlo.
Yeah, please go ahead, Ike. We got about 10 minutes to go, Mr. Ike. Go for it, yeah.
It's off.
Okay, go ahead, sir. I can hear you. I'm here. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, my mic was muted. Please go ahead, Mr. Ike.
Okay, good evening. Please, I'll be very quick. I've listened to the conversation so far. I want to thank you for putting this together. It has been very enriching and educative. There are just 3 points. There are 3 points I want to drop. The reason why the IMF is often scapegoated, if I may. First is their insistence on liberalization, their insistence on privatization, and their insistence on balance, fiscal balance, which is they've been touched. Speakers have touched on them, and just like it has been said, every nation borrows.
outlined there that when you go to borrow, the IMF will insist that you sign to liberalization, privatization, and austerity. And these things often they turn out very bad for countries. So most of the time, this is why the IMF, I will subscribe to the argument that they don't end up helping African countries because at the end of the day, we need to borrow, and most of the time we have balance of payments programs because the industrial structure and productivity is low. So we end up going to them to borrow. And when we go to borrow, the conditionalities they attach, they don't help our economies, to move in the right direction. So I think they have a part of the blame and the leadership, the structure of leadership and the quality of leadership we have in our countries also will take a part of it. Thank you.
Well said. I mean, people argue that the conditionalities are basically reforms that you have to get done so you can come back to the pathway of liquidity and creating revenues, not just to pay back the IMF, but to pay back your own external creditors. I think that's valid. If you are broke, it's because you overspent or your reforms or your structure was stifling your ability to generate wealth. I think IMF wants to unplug and block that stifleness so that you can make money. So, yeah, I guess it is what it is. Ibom, you've got the floor. Go ahead, Ibom. Rounding down, we're about 10 minutes to go, guys. Ibom, you've got the floor. Then we're going to take it. Ibom going once, one going twice. Uch. Is that Uch Invincible _Uche?
Yeah,
right, yeah.
Mr. Carlos.
Hey, how you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everyone on the space. Yes, I actually came up with regards to the topic. I won't blame IMF. Yeah, I will not blame IMF with regards to the problems in Africa because, of course, it is as a result of.
Hear me?
Can you hold on, Tito? Hold on, Tito.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Tito, I don't think to hold on. Go ahead.
Okay, it is as a result of the mismanagement of our resources that makes us to go to IMF carrying hand, of course. And by the time we get to IMF, they would automatically become the savior, and they will set out those conditions, and African countries will have to abide by them. But yet again, speaking of loans collected by African countries, you would want to ask what those loans are used for. You would want to ask what those loans are used for. And Nigeria is a case in point. You could see financial recklessness by public office holders. Of course, we would want to blame IMF, and yet Nigerians can't afford milk, and they go ahead to buy. They make a proposition to buy presidential jets and spend 21 billion to house just one man. That's the vice president, and several other financial recklessness on the ground. And you would want to also blame IMF for the recent news I'm seeing now on the timeline, where our debt to GDP ratio has crossed over 50% for the first time. All of this puts in place really, and of course, you will not want to blame IMF when you have several leakages in things that should earn you earnings in forex earnings. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Got about a minute to go.
Okay. And yet again, I would want to have something because I heard someone say that the person that came up earlier saying something about the Kenyan youth, the way they went out to protest, and that taxation grows economy. And I was shocked to hear that. And also tying that to politicians and politics is similar to having a career as a medical doctor. And when you hear such statements and you would say leadership is our problem. But yet again, followership also becomes a major problem when there is such opinions by followers on the space. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Excellent, guys. Let's get two more, then we'll just run out of space. We've been here for 3 hours. Appreciate everyone who's willing to speak. We've got Tito. Tito, you've got the floor. Let's go ahead.
Hi, everybody. It's a huge pleasure and privilege to be able to speak to you. Mine is a solution. I think the way forward, we tend to look so much at bilateral lending, direct lending, Let's establish that.
Yeah.
But my suggestion is we should look more towards the export agency. I personally am one of the investment banks. I cover Sub-Saharan Africa, export agency finance, and basically I cover 49 countries. And I'll tell you, with all the ECs, the export credit agencies that I work with, aside the likes of the multilaterals, the AFDBs, the ATF, and TDB in East Africa, we don't have any strong one within West Africa that is owned by West African countries. And the same thing goes for export credit agencies. The regular what we see across Africa is the likes of UKF, the French one, BPI, the Canadian one, EDC. We don't see homegrown ECs. So the idea is, this is my suggestion. We can't survive on our own, no matter how much we want to deceive ourselves. As a people like you have strong outreach. You can reach out to your friends in the private sector and let them look for people who can pool funds, because that's the only way you can bring in financing, infrastructural development, and stuff that will help the people move the direction they're trying to move. So let's look in that direction, open to further conversations in the future. I mean, because I believe on the side, I'm doing a few studies on regional integration. I can tell you for sure that that's the way to go as Africans. We should look beyond just the Nigerian story. We all have the same sort of difficulties across West Africa and indeed across Africa. So we should be looking at integration that is more holistic and pool resources. Africa as a whole does 5% of trade, global trade, yet the DG of the World Trade Organization is Nigeria. So let's look in that direction. I'm counting on people like you to make that happen.
The private capital follows government policy, more or less. So if the government has a policy that there's rule of law, there's protection of patents, the inflation rate is low, there's infrastructure, then private capital flows in. So the point I'm trying to make is that there has to be that push by the government to say we want to attract capital to come into the country, right? And that is what they've done with the depreciation of the naira to make it quote unquote cheaper for foreign capital to have more impact. They need to do more.
I agree, not to disagree with you, but saying the push also comes from us in the sense that we shouldn't be looking at Nigeria alone. Nigeria is good, but let's see how we can push the private sector from other countries to try and make this happen. We have the AFCFTA, the guys that are doing a great job, and the Secretary General is pretty decent in terms of efforts. People like this can help us mount pressure on policymakers, and we look at the story of the Schengen Eurozone. I think we can achieve much more with collaboration. Let's not look at Nigeria alone as a case study. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I don't know. Let's look at Nigeria. What do you want us to look at? What country should we look at?
Sorry?
What country should we look at?
Definitely within West Africa, I would advise Cote d'Ivoire. I worked in Cote d'Ivoire for a while. I'll tell you Cote d'Ivoire is one fastest rising. We should be looking at Senegal. Senegal has attracted a lot of UKF investments. I can tell you for sure this year I'm aware of about $4 to $6 billion that has been closed as deals over there. A lot more to be done.
I'm saying Nigeria should do better. We were making how much we were doing 6-7% GDP growth in 2003.
Yeah.
We were bringing FP. Nigeria has been the only sub-Saharan African nation on the JP Morgan bond index. We were there. We won Barclays bond index, and we learned. So
at the same time, we seem not to smell the roses. We're losing the markets with the likes of Tanzania.
Not losing, we've lost the market. Not losing, we've lost the market.
I was trying to put it nicely, but those guys, you may not know, but those guys, and from my little vantage position, I can tell you, I see every financing going down to places I've not believed to them, but as little as Zambia. And everyone, when you put Nigeria on the table, everyone is like, no, this doesn't work. But my point is, I think we should be pushing. The policymakers will do it for us. You and I know that. Let's go the coffee. We should be pushing for private integration within Africa. Let's try and see the guys we can talk to, and let's see how we can pull these guys and collectively make it happen.
I don't want to be a wet blanket, but if you go on the road from Nigeria to Togo or Benin, just on the border, Nigeria's side has 30 checkpoints. The Benin side has no checkpoints. The Nigerian roads are bad. The Benin roads are good. So in the end, we have the best policies, but someone actually has to go do his job. We shouldn't have checkpoints, 30 checkpoints in Nigerian side with bad roads. We should not have, and that's the problem. We've got to do our job. Exactly.
It's moved from okay, well, I've done the 4 days of Senegal right to Lagos, and the worst is when you get to I mean the Senegal down to Badagry. And it's funny, you may not know this, but you know Gowon built the road you have from Cotonou, well not entirely, but the part from Barakou and Pornovo to Senegal.
Yeah.
He did it in the 80s. So I mean that's initial plan. So but I'm just saying let's not sleep on it and think that because the nation is a mess, we'll just keep whining. I find it, and this is one of the first times I'm speaking on the podcast, and it's because you're someone I admire. But I just think we should take it upon ourselves and make it happen. Kenyans are making it happen because the average age is 90. These kids are fed up. So if we sit back and we're just we may not win politically, but we can push economically in our little way. And I try and drive the message home.
Yeah.
I think I'll leave my mic back.
Thank you. Yeah, your last speaker, so I think so. I mean, the key point again for Kenya, which I was impressed with, was the way the religious guys came out and said we support the kids. The tribes came out and said we support the kids. The courts came out and said we support the kids. There was nowhere for the politicians to hide. They couldn't hide under tribe. They couldn't hide under the courts. They couldn't hide under the army. Everyone said we support the kids. Answer the kids. These are the future.
And can you find me? Let's the final point. I think I can't buttress the point enough. I've had the privilege of working in French African countries in West Africa, in Central Africa. When living in the bubble in Nigeria, we seem to think that the whole world rotates around us. So we don't realize that people are making things happen elsewhere. And that's why you hear me cry repeatedly about the importance of regional integration. We need it. We need it to be able to further conversations.
Alright.
And then get to
Perfect. I apologize if anyone wants to speak. There was just no time. We've got to shut it down. 3 hours. We've been talking about the IMF, in interventions in Africa, looking at the structured development programs, World Bank, the history of it all. Where is the IMF coming from? Are they bad or good for Nigeria? I mean, the space has agreed that it's not the IMF per se. It's the implementation and the honesty and the competence of the local politicians that determines if IMF policies work or don't work. They haven't worked most times in Africa and Nigeria in particular. They seem to have worked in Asia. Asian crisis, IMF did a good job there. So we really can't blame others for our misfortune. We've got to get our act together. If we are borrowing, we should use those funds for what they are earmarked for. Developing the infrastructure, creating wealth within Nigeria for Nigeria, so that we can then be able to go back, if possibly, and tax the same Nigerians to then repay those loans. IMF is not split, in my opinion. You guys have also given your own opinion. That's what the cool thing is all about. We give opinions, we share, and we learn. Thanks for being here, guys, for nearly 3 hours. We'll be here again next week. Say on the topic. We're talking about, of course, your money, your economy, and your finance, and how that's going to be personal to you. Remember, guys, I'm an author. If you do want to get my book, it's on Amazon. Let's talk about your money. It's all personal finance, 22 years of experience, US and America, from crypto to savings to real estate to ETFs, all in there. How you can do it in nice, simple language with pictures. Adults like pictures. On that note, guys, I'll see you guys next week. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, guys. Have a good one. Love you all, and bye.